William Corliss takes us on a journey of eyewitness accounts of unusual phenomena, strange mechanical light displays in the dark waters of the ocean, baffling ships and aircraft. Violent thunderstorms and tornadoes that have glowing yellow balls like will-o-wisps hiding inside the clouds, covered up as ball lightning by the scientific community. Frozen turtles in hail and other hail that has fallen in very strange shapes. Animals falling from the blue skies. Fairy lights that act with intelligence. Shadow-graphing pictures of people and plants when lightning strikes. Rods in the sky and clouds that move as if concealing hidden machinery that is noisy and peculiar. This is just one of the books reviewed in Archaix. Hello, hello. To get that audio check out the way, should be pretty good right now. Damn, that was fast. Audio was great. Nelson Perez. Hey, there's Clay's pigeon. Nelson Perez. Hold on, man. Let me see something. Let me see. Okay, Clay. I thought Clay was in green. I was going to say, how the hell do you not have a wrench? All right. McKeer, how you doing? Nanny Puffins, always good to see you. Crystal Pistol, how you doing? Fearless Vic, Mr. C, John Yuskin. Yeah, man. Nancy Neal. Nancy Neal, you've been with me 4 years. How do you not have a blue wrench? Did you tell me not to give it to you? Because some people did. Some people specifically said don't give it to me. Sounds great. Excellent. Excellent. Awesome. We got a really good presentation today, and it flows into tomorrow's presentation, which flows into Sunday's presentation. I could actually do about 10 of these videos, but you're going to see from the amount of content just in this video alone, our world is not what you think. It's by omitting this material that the uniformitarian establishment science can say the things that they say. The only way that their world works is by practicing exclusions. This is why you see me get frustrated over and over and over with all these other channels, because they call themselves truth channels, they call themselves independent researchers, but if you're going to use a model that destines you to fail, if you're going to be doing all these demonstrations on ancient megaliths and ancient civilizations, and you want to expose things about Egypt and ancient Babylon, and you want to show that there's evidence of technology in Peru around Lake Titicaca and Pumapunka. All that's good. But when you default to uniformitarian principles, you shoot yourself in the foot. Absolutely. What I'm talking about is relative dating methods. Every single scientific relative dating method has been disproven. And yet, in the collegiate arena, that's all you hear. Carbon-14 has established that such and such fits within a window of such and such. That's only because they threw out 63 test results before they come up with the 20 that they needed. You guys got to understand, this is the standard practice in the scientific community, to do hundreds of tests and then practice exclusions until they get the date that they already determined. They do this all the time. They've been busted over and over. And remember, the very people that brought you evolution and natural selection and funded it are the same people who perpetuated the hoax called Piltdown Man and other hoaxes of hominids that never existed. I get passionate about this because it's these people who claim to be PhD laureates, they claim to be alumni for these great universities and all that. Yeah, I don't see you on my channel coming over here arguing this shit, because I'm going to take that bullshit apart. There are really good books out there by qualified researchers who have done the legwork, and they know that every one of these scientific dating methods are bullshit. Total crap. So it just boggles my mind when I'm sitting there listening to other YouTubers, and it's like, damn, man, you really want to make a name for yourself as an independent researcher doing all these things, but shit, you're citing all the scientific pseudo-babble. Science today is no different than Christianity. Both require a massive amount of faith based on very few variables. Those are religions. Science likes to say it's not religious, but it is. Every element of scientific theory has become a cult. It's become religious. But that's for another video. We're just going to get into some really interesting things in this video that show you our world is not what you think. And I specifically designed this because we have a special guest. You guys know, I don't care if some of you get triggered because you don't like whatever. I don't care. I've had many guests on my channel that I disagree with. I think Ben Davidson is a real good guy. I think his heart's in the right place. I do not like the fact that he cites NASA BS. But I had him on my channel and I treated him with the utmost respect. I dislike Micah Dank. I don't like his personality. I don't like his message. I don't like the fact that he calls himself some type of researcher and author and yet can't really produce anything to verify what he says. But I still gave him a shot and let him talk the entire time on my channel. And I only gave my points of contention at the very end of the video, treated with the utmost respect. Yeah. Well, Flat Earth Dave's coming on the channel. We were supposed to do a collab a while back. There's been some miscommunication. He did email me recently and said, man, I totally sent Big John the wrong email. He says a lot of small channels, a lot of people from different, not YouTube, other channels are always trying to contact me. We don't know who they are, have no idea what their message is. Is it going to be a trap? All the standard stuff. What is it? So is a questionnaire. Well, that's what Big John got. That's not what we had signed up for, because we'd already pretty much negotiated that we're going to do a real cool, friendly video through a mutual friend named Ian. So anyway, it was all misunderstanding, and it's all been rectified. But my community, or some small elements of my community, you need to lighten up. There's a whole lot of people out there that hate my guts. But you know what? Many of them have the maturity to admit that I provide value where others do not. So they listen anyway. They're just quiet followers. That's all good. It's all good. I can't stand Tucker Carlson. But you know what? I listen to him every once in a while when I get a chance. I get drawn in trying to see, what the company's trying to foist upon the people now. So yeah, man. We all know who Tucker is. So anyway, Flat Earth Dave is coming to the channel, so it's an excellent time for me to do something I've been wanting to do for a while, but I haven't. I wanted to do a 3-day blast. This is the first day. Tomorrow's the second. Sunday's the third. Then we'll have Flat Earth Dave on. But you need to see that our world is not what you think. You need to understand that much of this has already been published. It's very well established. And there is a vast amount of scientifically verifiable discoveries that have been shelved because they completely defy what is being taught as history and science today. Yes, our establishment science today is all about cherry picking. Most of you know this. I'm just preaching to the choir. But there's a small minority of you, that you're sitting there listening, always looking for some chink in my armor, always looking to see what the weakest link is in a logic train. I get it. You can continue to do that. I welcome you to. But I've been getting more and more aggressive on Twitter, man, because people, they trigger me, say stupid shit. It's really embarrassing that your own heroes won't defend themselves publicly from a guy with an 8th grade education who just happened to read a bunch of books. Why won't your heroes defend themselves? Instead, they let me take their castles down brick by brick, which I'm doing and which I will continue to do and which I will be successful in doing. Why? Why hate on me? Why don't you start questioning them why they're letting me run my mouth with no opposition? Yeah, you've never heard Jimmy Corsetti get online anywhere and say, I'm calling Jason Brashears of Archaix out to a debate. Hell no, you've never heard that. And you probably never will if he's a wise man. But if he's stupid, it's going to be a great show. Graham Hancock too. Billy Carson, of course. You know what I mean? But I might have to shed a few IQ points to debate Billy. We got to be on the same footing. So yeah, man, this uniformitarian, I'm going to explain what it all is too, guys. You guys got to understand. The uniformitarian position completely obliterates most of these struggling truthers. There's a lot of good little struggling channels out there trying to convey the truth and all that, but they're still presenting their material within the uniformitarian model. Therefore, they're still stuck in that trap. They're still stuck in the chronological trap. They're still stuck within frames of reference that are absolutely false, like Younger Dryas impact theory. Complete BS. Has nothing to do with the human experience. There isn't a single written record that goes back before 3439 BC. None. And the traditional record doesn't seem to go back further than the 5th century BC. So talking about things that happened in the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th century BC is just, it's ridiculous. We don't have any frames of reference at all, unless you invent them, like Graham Hancock. So, somebody sent me a really interesting email. I just read it today about Iron Age, the Vedic Iron Age and the Iron Age of India, southern India and northern India, 2 different Iron Ages that appeared at 2 different time periods. And the information they sent me really blew my mind, because it's exactly what I told you in Archaix's material, and I didn't have access to that data. This is from scholars in India putting out that there's been 2 different Iron Ages. Here's the dates. Could not believe it. It is exact to what I told you. Technology from the Neolithic just blew up in the 35th century BC. 3439 BC, Inky appears, the Anuna, urbanization, city planning, vast canal works, all kinds of stuff. Then it kind of peters out into a degenerative period, which is the shock and awe period that I've told you about before the flood. Then the Great Typhon Flood, 2239 BC, total worldwide systemic reset. The world is asleep for 250 years. Then development again, using copper, bronze, tin. Now we have this development again. It's slow. The world's waking up. And then right around the 13th, 12th century BC, iron begins to be used. Exactly what Plato said was a new development in the Mediterranean when the Atlanteans, the sea peoples, began to attack Athens. One of the signal characteristics of the Atlantis story is the appearance of iron. Yeah, in a Bronze Age. It was huge. That's why Plato mentioned it. It's exactly when we find the Sea Peoples Federation invading the Mediterranean. It's exactly what this guy sent me about what was published by the Vedic scholars of India, that the second ice age had Iron Age. One was before the flood, one was after the flood, and they perfectly match the Phoenix chronology. Love seeing that email. Whoever you are, thank you, man. I didn't recognize you. I don't recognize who you are, but I love that email with those PDF attachments. So I got a lot to show. Let me get these 2 little video clips off here. I have a lot to show you. So for the next 3 days, that's what we're doing. We're doing a live every day at 6 p.m. And, well, you know what? I might change it up. I might do a live on 4 p.m. tomorrow and then do a live on Sunday at 2 p.m. Try to change the time up a little bit, but it's going to be a live 3 days in a row, and I'm just going to show you on the screen just amazing things from the Archaix library. I'm going to show you. By the end of each video, you're not going to have any choice but to conclude, man, our world is not what we think. It's not. And there's no way the scientific uniformitarian model can be true at all. Friday night, thank you guys for joining me. Hello, Not of This World, Pamela Swan, Julia Hall. You're a real familiar face too now. Jason Perez, always Jamie Robbins, Omega Lumini, and of course, can't leave out the One Tucks, my New Zealand family. Justin Iola, you're real close to getting that wrench, brother. You've been around a long time. Haunting me in cipher. Okay, let's see here. Nancy Neal, send me an email if you want that. You sure as hell earned that a long time ago. And I don't give out the blue wrenches because I expect you to do a bunch of moderating in here. I give out the blue wrenches because your name is very well known to me over the years as somebody who hasn't just been listening to me for a while, but has been a contributor in the comment section and has been interactive for a good while. That's why these people have these blue wrenches, because they've been here. They've been learning. They've been interacting, and some of them do a really good job as well as moderating. But though you see people with blue wrenches, it's because they've been in Archaics a long time. Okay. Let's do it. So, the first book we will be looking at is Atlas Obscura, right here. Really amazing book. If you can get a copy of this book, I would. Here's the beauty of it. In my travels all over the United States, and even locally, you can all do this locally. Here's Mysteries of the Unexplained. We're going to be talking about this too. Some amazing stuff in this book. So, a Graham Hancock book is going to cost you $20 to $26. Hardback, he comes out with a new book, you get it. You're going to be lied to about all kinds of things, Zodiac and all that stuff. But you know what? All these used bookstores, for some reason, it's these kind of books that are in the giveaway bins. They're in the $1. Here's the little $1 deals, or they put a $2. They don't. All these people that are running bookstores all over America, for some reason, it's in their mind. This is uniform. It's uniform across the United States. I have shopped these stores with Big John and Cole from Virginia Beach on the East Coast to San Diego 4 times now. And I'm telling you, it is uniform coast to coast. All these used bookstores, for some reason, the owners think the least valuable books are the ones that have all the archaeology and history and ancient mysteries, all the unexplained, all the enigmatic material. My entire library, another building next to my studio, my entire library is half of those books. Some of the books cost me thousands of dollars a volume. Literally, some of those books I have cost me over $1,000 for each book. Others, $1,000 paid for literally 600 books. Yeah, $1.50 a book. And these books are gold mines. These huge books full of photographs from all kinds of stuff all over the world are the cheapest ones. It's like they're just trying to save space and get rid of them or whatever. It's uniform all over the United States. The used bookstores have amazing books and they're the cheapest. Everything we talk about on Archaix is you don't have to be rich to get this information. That's what these are. These are cheap as hell right here. That's where we're going. So that's where we're going to go. I'm telling you guys, you got many of the books I've showed you came at almost no cost to me. I would have never known the difference, putting $25 in my tank and paying an extra $5 to put it in the tank, or paying $5 and getting 3 books from a used bookstore. It doesn't even matter. It's negligible. And yet the amount of information is fantastic. These books are great. You're going to see right here. And this is just 2 that I showed on the thumbnail. The thumbnail showed like 11 books, something like that. This is just 2 of the books that we're going to review in this video. I don't care if it takes 3 hours, but we're going to review what's in these books. And I don't know if 3 videos are going to be able to cover that 1 stack. But truth is, I have 4 stacks of these books. These big, large books. I have 4 stacks, all the same size as the one that's on this thumbnail, of all these different large books about ancient mysteries, all mixed up stuff. It's crazy. It is crazy how prevalent this material is all over the United States, and most people don't know it. Don't even know it. It's everywhere. Just ride. All right. Face Diaper, you ready, huh? Share my screen. We will look at Obscura first. It has the less amount of material. And then the Unexplained book, that's massive. Let's do it. All right. My camera is awesome. It takes pictures in 4K. The camera is awesome. So, Atlas Obscura. This is the 2nd edition. It is a great book. Not really sure where I got it. There's a map in the end of this that's going to blow your mind. So, I'm going in order from page 1 to the end of the book, but I'm skipping a whole bunch of pages. I only took pictures of things I wanted to discuss. So in the ancient world, we have, like in Pliny the Elder, in Julius Obsequens, and many other ancient writers, we have references to machines and robots. And it's often thought that at the Delphic Oracle, there was sometimes a goddess statue that moved, and it shocked people. And this was prevalent in the ancient world. That's the second time I use this word in 5 minutes. I got to move around. That was common in the ancient world, these automatons. So we like to think in modern frames of reference. We're thinking of androids. We're thinking of all that. But this is from 1770. This is like what's that guy that you ask for your fortune? I just did a video recently showing him in Galveston, the wearing the turban. Damn, I already forgot his name. You guys know. You put $1 in there and you ask him a question and he gives you a random deal, and he's a fortune teller. He's in a booth. Man, I can't believe I forgot that guy's name. Famous. They've been doing that same little scam for 200 years. Zoltan. Thank you. That's what it was. Yeah, I've done 2 videos with Zoltan. So this is the same principle. This one was really interesting because the table is hollow, and there's a little guy in there who happens to play chess really good, and he has, he has an exact map of the chessboard, and he's moving the pieces, and it makes the automaton, because he's holding the controls, and it makes the automaton. So the real human player is playing against the statue, and the statue's actually moving. So it would be kind of creepy if you didn't really know what was going on, that there was a human inside the table controlling it. But this is from the year 1770, but this is exactly what the ancient Greeks were doing as well. It's just different ways. It's different glyphs. It's actually a lot of ingenuity. This is what they did. It would have looked like magic or spellcraft. There's no doubt. So this Kraken was caught in 2004. Here it is being the length of a school bus. Can you imagine being in the water with that thing? You're on the menu. You can't fight that. You ain't got but 2 arms. That thing's got 10. You're out of there. They call him Archie the Giant. Can you imagine that? Now I'm gonna show you some more evidence about these, because this isn't the largest one that's been encountered by far, but that's one that was actually caught. That's 2004. Thank you, Michael Masek. I'll be your Uncle Barry. So this thing jumps around. I wanted to show this because in the Tartarian narrative, they make much ado about these crypts and these catacombs being full of skeletons, and it's not a mystery. I've said this on previous YouTube videos explaining. I says, guys, when the Great Black Death happened to the world, in a 2-year period, 1/3 of the entire world's population died. They didn't have room to bury all these people. People were dying every minute in every city. They didn't have, so they did the best thing they could. And it even says right here in this book. And many times they just packed every underground area with the dead. That's all they could. They didn't even have time to dig. They found sewers, cisterns, basements, catacombs, crypts that where the bodies were set into the side. They got overrun because of there was a need, there was a utility, which was the dead are decomposing from the plague. They're all over the city. They got to dispose of the bodies. So that's what they did in European cities, and that's why these catacombs are found like this from time to time, and they are jam-packed with skeletons. The reason is those people weren't buried alive. Some of them may have still been alive, but they would have probably been delirious. But those catacombs under Paris, Rome, all different places, Venice, those catacombs were the only place that they could really put so many dying people at one time. This is the 13th and 14th century AD. Just wanted to show that, because they're talking about it here too. They actually mention this is exactly why these basilicas and catacombs were packed full. It's because of the plague. It wasn't something I made up. Oh man, look at this. The child eater of Bern. Look at them poor kids. Look at them poor kids. The child eater. So what this is talking about is that, you know, in over time, it's been explained publicly that must be a reference to Kronos, the Titan, eating his children, or this must be some Greek legend or myth or all that. But the real history is darker. It's real. You have to go with what the locals are saying, not with what the establishment is trying to tell you it is. What I found out interesting in this book is they actually mentioned it. They said another unfortunate possibility is that the child eater reflects the 16th century belief that Jews murdered children to use their blood for religious rituals. Kinless that's child killer, yellow pointed hat is strikingly similar to the headwear that Jews wore at the time. That's at a fountain. Can you imagine putting this statue here at a fountain? That's crazy. Skeleton Lake, Rupkund, Uttarakhand. Where in the hell is that? Wow. So when a park ranger, H.K. Modwell, discovered a lake ringed with thousands of human bones while walking in the Uttarakhand Himalayas in 1942, he raised a question that went unanswered for over 60 years. What killed hundreds of people whose skeletons surrounded the lake? I don't know what kind of art. This is just a little piece of art referring to that. So what's crazy about this story is that we have a whole crowd of people, hundreds of people around a lake in the Himalayas, and that all of them died by the same wounds, but nowhere was any body like another body. They all died by bludgeoning to the shoulders and to the head. Everybody, hundreds of people, all died by bludgeoning to the shoulders and to the head, but they had no one had any damage to their skeletons on their hands and arms, like they were trying to defend themselves at all. What's crazy about this story is that scientists went out here and examined all the skeletons, and this has been a mystery for a long time. But come to find out, after the examination, they realized that about 1,200 years ago, around 850 AD, these people were all outside around a lake, probably having a good time, when suddenly, without any warning, they all got bludgeoned to death with large hailstones that were so big, they just killed them on contact. If they hit them in the shoulders, they killed them. They hit them in the head, they killed them. They never had time to raise their arms and hands to defend themselves. They all died right there on the spot. That is some hellified hail. It's crazy. But gigantic hailstones aren't the only things that fall from the sky, as we'll see. So we've seen this before. This is an Angkor Wat. Or Angkor Thom. This is an Angkor Thom right here. We've seen this, and there is an explanation for all these dinosaurs that have been found in the Dark Ages to the Middle Age period. Remember what I told you guys about when the Dark Ages was over and we were coming out of the Middle Ages. It was like Christianity was super primitive all over again. Like it lost its total sophistication. It was very primitive. They were finding relics for all kinds of things. And making up so many ridiculous church saints coming out the Middle Ages, as if a long hiatus of illiteracy had just been suffered. We call it the Dark Ages. But there was a lot more going on during the Dark Ages, because in the Middle Ages, knights were preoccupied with battling gigantic frogs, lizards, giant snakes, sometimes stylized dragons, and Jesus was Lord of the Mushrooms. And we have this weird period in the Middle Ages, as if they had just come out of a period of history for which we have been misled about. I'm calling it a vapor canopy period. This creature here was sculpted on a Cambodian temple coming right out of the Dark Ages. Here it is, 12th century. This is the height of the Middle Ages. It's dated. Stegosaurus is dated at 12th century right here. So even the dating is very good for our previous presentations, where we're showing the Dark Ages was a lot more than just a collapse of literacy. It was literally dark. Vapor canopy world. So I took a picture of this in the book because so here's the Statue of Liberty. We all think it's huge. And for 1886, yes, it was gigantic. What makes the Statue of Liberty even bigger is the fact that it's on a huge platform. It's on a gigantic platform. But the actual statue here is 151 feet high. Whoops. It's 151 feet high. But look at these Asian statues. These are real statues that have been set up in different places of the world. Look at the size of these statues. The reason I wanted to draw your attention to this, because even the largest statue at over 400 feet it's still 30 feet under the height of the Great Pyramid in Egypt. Great Pyramid is epic engineering. But you guys already know, I'm passionate about that. Too many people just wash over all the anomalies of the Great Pyramid, thinking that all the other pyramids in the world are like it, and they're not. They're not at all, not even close. So here's another example of something that's just so anomalous that we can't process it. So it's basically ignored. These are gigantic stone jars. We can't move them without tractors. Gigantic stone jars, and they're placed all out in disarray. They were probably all uniform, and they were probably all rigidly erect at 90 degrees, but something happened. Something happened to move them this way. This is in Asia as well. So here's the Archaix structure. This is what got Jimmy Corsetti famous. This is the Archaix structure. It's been highlighted so you'll understand what it is. It's in the desert of Africa. But even in this article, it is explained, the Archaix structure, it's explained exactly what I told you what it was. It is a dome that is created under pressure, because formerly this was underwater. This is all underwater. When it was underwater, it's an underwater volcano or a flue, a vent. And pressure builds a dome. After a while, once the dome is breached and all that pressure escapes, the dome literally just falls in on itself. So what's created? A ring. What is the ring? It's the basement of the dome. Then it happens again and creates another ring. Then it happens again and creates a smaller ring. This is why you have concentric rings. There's no Atlantis here. In fact, archaeologists have found Neolithic artifacts, arrowheads, pewter bowls, and stuff like that they date at 30,000 years BC all over the area. There would have been no Atlantis there. Republic of the Congo, Lake Teal. Here is the Mokele Mimbi. How many of you remember in the 1980s a movie called Baby? I know some of you guys remember that movie from the 80s. I was a kid, but I remember watching. I was fascinated that the Africans for centuries have been saying that there was a colony of these creatures, Brontosauruses or Allosaur, whatever they are, uh, living in the swamps, in the jungles of Africa. But this isn't just Africa. It's many places in the world. And the reason it's so unbelievable to the average person is because the average person has been educated under uniformitarian principles. So they automatically look at a dinosaur and they think, oh, that's 65 million years ago. Jason, you're a dumbass. That's what uniformitarian does. Uniformitarian principles do. It automatically makes you compartmentalize something into an anachronism, into something in a time period for which it does not belong. When we have native North and Central American and South American petroglyphs that perfectly anatomically show dinosaur type creatures, when we have totem poles that show warriors fighting dinosaur type creatures that have been identified as Stegosaurus, Triceratops, and Tyrannosaurus Rex, then that means that these creatures were seen in living memory. Guys, I'm telling you guys, you already know the answer if you've been listening to me. Ice Age is the biggest cover-up ever. Ice Age is absolute fantasy. The real history of our world is vapor canopy cycles, and it's always caused by the phoenix, and the phoenix is what brings about all this volcanic activity, and the volcanic activity is at its apex when the phoenix is in the sky, and then it simmers down once the phoenix it leaves. But once the phoenix leaves, what does it leave behind it? A vapor canopy. In ancient Egypt, the pre-flood world was shown as a goddess forming a dome with her body. And it shows the stars, and they're beautiful. And the Egyptian calendar was lunar. And when these depictions were used in ancient Egypt, the sun was not even a part of the pantheon yet. Remember, the sun is the very last god that entered into the Egyptian pantheon. Horus is the last. He's at the very end. Same thing with Sumer. Utu Shamash was the very last god in a very long Sumerian history. The reason is this canopy, this beautiful starry canopy that in ancient Egypt is a goddess bending over. This is why we have the return of the goddess in the book of Revelation. The goddess is a metaphor for the vapor canopy itself. This is why the ancient Native Americans venerated Sky Grandmother, and they called her Spider Grandmother, because this massive web she cast over the sky held the stars in place. Everything was beautiful. And yet it never rained. And yet everybody had enough water, and there was mist and there was dew every morning and every evening. So the return of the goddess is the return of an entirely different biosphere. That biosphere is where amphibians and reptiles go through all kinds of DNA synaptic changes, whatever. And because of the increased oxygen, because of the increased air pressure, all of a sudden, man, we have normal lizards we know today growing into gigantic creatures and taking on new appendages, dorsal vertebrae appendages, and they change. And this is a cycle, and it's going on over and over and over. Anybody who has seen my video on Akambaro will know humans and dinosaur type creatures live side by side because we were domesticating them, and it wasn't 65 million years ago. It was within the last 5,000 years. I wanted to show this. Yeah, some of you girls are going to have a bad hair day. Some of you girls are going to have a bad hair day under vapor canopy conditions. But remember, too, it was under the vapor canopy of the pre-flood world that we were the most technologically advanced. We were the most technologically advanced then. So you can imagine all the amenities we had back then as well. So this is very interesting to me. A 700-year-old scorched trees emerged from the salt pan, surrounded by the world's tallest sand dunes. So those trees did not suddenly start growing in a desert. Thousands of these trees that look like this did not suddenly start growing on a former ocean bed. That's not what happened. seeing a picture like this and finding out that there's thousands of these trees and they're in sand and the trees are pretty much almost dead or dying, there's no way they would have grown there if the biosphere had looked like that 700 years ago. There's no way. There was a time when those trees were thriving, or this was a great and mighty forest, and these few thousand trees are the holdouts. Our entire world has changed multiple times. You know, we've already documented the maps. We know 500-year-old maps show ice-free Antarctica. We know 500-year-old maps show no ice whatsoever on Greenland. We absolutely know that 500-year-old maps show no Great Lakes in North America. And we know that 500-year-old maps show California as a completely different, gigantic island. We know this. We have it. But we're gaslit by uniformitarian science to accept that our predecessors were dumbasses and didn't really know what they were talking about. We're gaslit all the time. And yet we need to rely on their authority because they know what they're talking about. But in order to position themselves as the authority, they have to create frauds like Piltdown Man, like Carbon-14 by William Libby. It's all fraudulent. Potassium-argon dating, ice core dating, dendrochronology. It is all fraudulent. It is all based off predilections that just are not true. They're just not true. Preconceived notions that are not true. So I thought this was interesting looking at this, that because the date they threw out here was 1100 CE. Whoa! So the drought came when? At the beginning of the Middle Ages, right after the Dark Ages. Here it is again. The evidence is staring us in the face for the last time there was a vapor canopy. That's why we have these 500-year-old maps. They're just copies of copies of copies of copies going back to about the year 1100 or 1000. Remember, really compelling videos I've done showing you that everything happened at the same time. The Norman Vikings appeared. They start civilizing Europe. All the great stone castles were built at the same time as the cathedrals. Cathedrals and castles were built at the same time as the universities. The cathedrals, the castles, the universities are all built at the same time. European cities are becoming sophisticated with all kinds of plumbing. All this happened. Why the year 1000 and 1100 did all this happen? At this exact same time, Christianity seems really primitive. Really, really comical. It's almost like comic book Christianity, but within 250 years, it got real sophisticated with multiple different doctrines and all kinds of things. What had happened from the 6th century AD all the way to the 900s, that Christianity not only did not evolve and develop beyond what it was in the 5th century and the 4th century when it was getting sophisticated, what happened during this whole hiatus that it actually became so comical. Yeah, St. George and the Dragon. And like I said, Jesus was Lord of the Mushrooms in the beginning of the Middle Ages. They abandoned that quick when they realized how serious it was. So today we have tortoises right here that grow. This one's 550 pounds. But I'm only showing this right here to illustrate a point. Imagine the return of a vapor canopy. That reptile is only 550 pounds because it can only absorb so much oxygen in its blood through those nostrils. That's it. But imagine when our air content is like 90% oxygen. Imagine when our atmospheric pressure is about 5 times what it is right now. Oh, it changes. It fundamentally changes the human body. Reptiles, amphibians, insects, everything changes. Our relationship with water changes. Now water's not so intimidating under a high pressure environment. Right now, under such low pressure, we feel high pressure when we go 12, 13, 14 feet underwater. But under a high pressure environment, it changes the pressure of the water. And now a high pressure avatar on land can dive in the water and swim down 200 feet and get these large oysters and clams and bring them up to the surface and create shell middens that are 50 feet high that archaeologists in the 1970s and 80s and 90s can baffle over because they can't figure out how in the hell did humans 4,000 years ago get to the depth of 200 feet where these mollusks grow? Because they can't. If they don't get to that depth, they'll never get those species of clams and oysters. I'm not making that up. That's straight out of books out of the Archaix library. I know how they did it, because under a vapor canopy, humans can do a whole lot more than we can do right now. Oh, I need to plug my battery in. Hold on. 3 screens. 3 screens suck the power out of my laptop. I had it unplugged. So this is Merryman in South Australia. Now remember what Charles Fort said. Anytime there's an anomaly out there in the field, it's like there's an occult police force. It's like all of a sudden an explanation is given that's just good enough to throw off 90% of the population. 90% of the population will always go with whatever explanation is given to them because they're dullards. They're not free thinkers. As Charles Fort was really stressed out about that. He talked about it a lot. It's like, damn, man, people just believe anything. Charles Fort wrote 4 awesome books. 1919 was the first one, Book of the Damned. And we're going to be looking at some Charles Fort related stuff here, things that he reported on too, right here in this book. Some fascinating stuff. I don't have time to independently thank you guys, man. I see some donations coming. I appreciate that. I really do. I know Big John and Cheryl appreciate it. Thank you, man. So here's Merryman. The cover story never made sense. It still doesn't make sense, even if you read this whole article. Even the article basically alludes that it just doesn't really make sense. But it's supposed to be some rich American got mad at somebody and rented a tractor and made that thing with a tractor. Now, that opens up a lot of more stupid stuff, such as what did he do with all that earth that had been removed? So remember, if something is true somewhere, it's probably true everywhere. If we have giant effigies just like this that face the sky, like at Nazca, where we have 40 or 50 geometrical shapes that are gigantic, that when you're on the ground, you can't see the whole shapes. But when you're in the air, they're perfect geometrical forms. We have the CERN giant, the CERN Abyss giant in the UK. We have North America. We have effigies, the giant snake eating the egg. Also in California, there's one called the Blythe giant. So we got several of them all over the world. So why is it mysterious to have one in Australia? I mean, we found Dravidian and Vedic artifacts in Australia. Egyptian artifacts, Phoenician artifacts have been found in Australia. Why is it an anomaly all of a sudden for the Merryman to be a mystery? Why does it have to be some rich American who came to Australia and rented a tractor? It is so dumb. It's so dumb. That's what some people are trying to say it is. I'm not buying it. Why didn't that rich American go make the Nazca lines? CERN Abyss giant's been known for centuries there. This picture here, Yamamoto's bomber. This picture here, I'm offering to the critics because in the last month or so, I have fielded a couple questions like, Jason, man, you make some really good points, but I'm just going to have to, I'm going to have to reserve my judgment, man, because you haven't produced a single machine from the ancient world. So my response to this, first of all, they're talking about all the videos I've done showing that all these megaliths and all this megalithic architecture that's technolithic meaning it's coined by James O'Con, technolithic. But this technolithic deal, these are molds, and the reason they're mysterious to all these researchers is because this is what was left behind. The removed material, it looks completely different. You're looking at whatever the machine left behind when it fracture quarried all this right off of living rock. So they say, well, you've never produced the machines. And I'm like, okay, well, the Great Pyramid of Egypt is a machine. And I've shown that abundantly. But I get your point. But can you direct me to any technology this world has ever known that will make steel and iron last forever? I need to know. I need to know that, because even World War II armament, tanks and aircraft are already rusting apart where they were left in situ. Here's a case in point. There it is right there. It hasn't even been 100 years. Look at that plane. It hasn't even been 100 years. And guess what hasn't happened in between World War II and now? A total systemic reset. So the machines that were used in the 34th, 33rd, 32nd, and about the year 3000 BC, the machines that were used to produce the Technolithic artifacts that we found all over the world, from Tiwanaku, Pumapunka, some places outside that were fracture quarried outside of Olympia, Greece, many places in Egypt, all these places, also around Angkor Wat, all these places that show evidence of Technolithic sophistication. That's a long time ago. But the problem is we are looking back through the lens of the 522 systemic reset that destroyed the entire world and created the Dark Ages. We are looking back through the 1135 BC destruction of the start of the Great Mediterranean and Vedic Dark Age. This was 1135 BC, the story of Atlantis. You already know it. The Sea Peoples, the fall of the Hittite Empire, all that. We are looking back through the lens of the greatest destruction this world has ever known, called the Ogygian Deluge, caused by the Phoenix Typhon in 1687 BC. You guys remember W.J. Perry wrote a whole 551-page book just about this one year and how every single dynasty in the world collapsed at the exact same time. We are looking back through the lens of the Great Flood of Noah, more commonly referred to as Vulcan's Flood or the Typhon Flood of 2239 BC. We are looking back through 4 world destructions, at least, and many regional, many continental, and hundreds of thousands of local destructions. We are looking back through this lens of all this massive volcanic and diluvial resurfacing all over the world, going all the way back. So somebody wants to criticize, say, well, where are the machines? The problem we have with that is that we're looking back through too many world destructions to a period when those machines existed. Additionally, every single city and habitation for which we existed back then had to be excavated. We had to dig them up. Also, machines have been found. Anybody who has ever studied the Antikythera computer that is 21 centuries old will know that somebody understood differential geared mechanics and they built a perfect working astrolabe. Antikythera computer was found in 1900 by sponge divers off the coast of Crete in a ship that had been sunk in the Mithridatic Wars between Pontus and Rome. So, yes, computer. So I'm going to have to say, yeah, a machine has been found, a couple of them. Not a good argument. Not a good argument. This right here was an interesting page about cargo cults. I've talked about cargo cults quite a bit. And I will always give credit to David Hatcher Childress for introducing me to this concept. Cargo cults. Cargo cults are when a more primitive culture comes in contact with a sophisticated culture and they begin to emulate the very things that they saw because they wanted to produce the same results. It is an attempt from a more primitive culture at sympathetic magic. That's what it is. So here's an excellent example of the slow force of nature and how it completely just removes or changes everything of men, everything of human provenance. Here it is. One simple tree. One simple tree right here. You've seen what the jungles did in just 800 years to the Mayan temples, the Mayan pyramids. So this is about in North Carolina. This is the The Stanley Raider Carnivorous Plant Garden. I know some of you women are going to get freaked out about this. But can you imagine? Can you imagine the Venus flytrap and about 18 other species of carnivorous plants that are found in the world? One of the highest concentrations naturally in the world for these carnivorous plants is in North Carolina. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but I did read that it was around a bowl that some people thought was like a crater impact. I don't know. But we have these species of carnivorous plant. Can you imagine what these plants will be like? Some of these plants eat mice. They eat spiders, roaches, ants. Some of them eat flies, like the Venus flytrap. But some of these are large enough that they have bulbs, and the end of the bulbs have teeth, and they have a sweet liquid in there. And these field mice go in there, or birds go all the way in there to get that nectar, and the whole thing closes in on them. These are carnivorous plants. Can you imagine a vapor canopy environment with these gigantic man-eating plants? That might have been where our ancestors came up with the plant called mantrap. So here's a good map. Here's a good map across the United States of different monsters that are said to inhabit lakes across the United States. That's a lot. That's a lot. Remember, the Native American tribes, before we even got here, had a plethora of stories and legends, and it wasn't in their myths. It was in the stories of their fathers, like my father, like my father's grandfather hunted. So it's almost like around the Middle Ages or the late Dark Ages is when most of these creatures were abundant. But still, even up to the 1900s, we have all kinds of sightings in lakes, freshwater lakes all across America of these giant creatures. Most of them look like the Loch Ness monster, which is anatomically it's a genus. What is a plesiosaur? Thought that's pretty interesting. Here they are. They all got different names, different lakes. Man, look at that. Oklahoma got an octopus, a freshwater octopus. How's that? Oh, that's not Oklahoma. That's Kansas. That's Kansas right there above Oklahoma. I'll go to that lake. I need to look that up. I will take a trip out to that lake. Yeah, man, that's crazy. Man, these anthropoids, that must be the Sandman. I've heard of the Lake Worth monster in Texas, Lake Worth monster. That's up by Dallas-Fort Worth. So here's the Ica stones. I showed these recently in a presentation as well. I just showed 3 or 4 of them. Actually, there's thousands of them. But the Ica stones literally show Native Americans interacting with anatomically correct Stegosaurus, Triceratops, Tyrannosaurus, Brachiosaurus, Brontosaurus, and pterodactyls. They didn't just have an imagination. These are not Incan anthropologists or paleontologists. No. Art emulates life. These are the creatures they knew well. And when we go by the actual dates of the early Maya, the Olmec, and the ancestors of the Inca, the Aymara, we find out that we're exactly where I'm telling you a vapor canopy was in the 6th century, 7th century, 8th century, and 9th century AD. The Ica stones match perfectly with that period. These aren't ancient. They're not thousands and thousands of years old. They're relatively recent. Here's the Ica stones. It's amazing, guys. Absolutely amazing. Okay, I've told you the story about 1902 in the month of May. The Mount Pelée on the island of Saint Martinique exploded and killed 30,000 people there. Over 60,000 people died in all three volcanoes that were going off at the same time. One of them was St. Vincent, and another one was somewhere else in Central America, one Guatemala, one in the French Caribbean. So here's Martinique. The survivor, Ludger Silberus. This guy survived because he was in this jail. Somebody took a picture of the jail. This is the original jail cell, and he was in a dungeon underneath it when the volcano exploded and the fiery cloud killed everybody in the city, and he's under there protected. He was down there for 4 days before rescuers found him. He ended up going on tour with the Barnum and Bailey Circus, talking about it all over the world. Yeah, I'm not interested in seeing any giant scorpions either. But I will tell you this. I'm not going to show it in this presentation, but I will show it in a future presentation. I have several examples that have been found in the archaeological record that are an anomaly. They don't talk about them. You have to go to William Corliss. You have to go to Richard Thompson, Michael Cremo. You have to go to their type of research of Barry Fell. You have to go to these core researchers that are not as scared of the establishment. These guys are showing skulls of vapor canopy megafauna. They're showing the skulls with bores that go through them laser smooth, meaning whatever we were using before the flood for rifles, the projectile was at such high velocity, it literally melted through the skulls. We have several examples of these. We even have Neanderthal skulls, as if the Neanderthal were the ones that we had to fight off. We're the descendants of the Cro-Magnon, Magdalenian. But the Neanderthal, we know after a cataclysm, Neanderthal were eating the Cro-Magnon. We found the bone middens. We found the teeth marks on the bone. Yeah, it was cannibalism. But Neanderthal and Cro-Magnon are very different. And this is exemplified in the story of Cain killing Abel. When Cain killed Abel, I'm not saying the story is true. I'm saying it exemplifies a very real scenario. When Cain killed Abel, and Abel's supposed to be the only other person in the world that was born because Adam and Eve were created, right? So Adam and Eve were created in the garden. They have a son. They have sons named Cain and Abel. Then Cain kills Abel, his brother. That should leave 3 people on earth, right? According to the Genesis narrative, only 3 people are here. But the first thing out of Cain's mouth was he feared being cast out and banished. Why? Because the others would kill him. Who were the others? So, Montserrat. I wanted to show this right here because a single volcanic eruption buried this entire city. Can't live in that. You can't live here no more. It's over with. One single eruption buried this city. We already know what happened with Mount Vesuvius in AD 79 because one of the greatest historians of all time died. Pliny the Elder, trying to rescue a female friend who sent a message of distress through a bunch of people that were fleeing by boat. And somebody hollered at Pliny on his estate and say, "Hey, your girlfriend, such and such is still back on the edge of the mountain. She's at Herculaneum and she needs to be rescued." And Pliny got his household together, got on his ship, and tried to get as close as possible, and was never heard from again. How do we know? Because Pliny the Younger gave us the account. Pliny the Elder died that way when Mount Vesuvius in AD 79 erupted. It buried Herculaneum and Pompeii. And what the Roman residents of those 2 luxury estate cities didn't know was that 60 feet underneath those cities was another city, even more ancient, that was completely buried in the Avellino eruption of 1687 BC. They didn't know. Yeah, you see how perfect that is? And all that volcanic ash, after a while, it just becomes soil. It just becomes dirt. All that ash and pumice becomes dirt. How does that happen? Because real dust and dirt blankets the area for centuries. And every time it rains, it creates what's called leaching. When leaching is a mixture of the soil materials, mineral compounds from the new dust and soil that's blown in, leach into the soil, and after a few thousand years, there's no difference. It's just dirt. This is how ancient structures, ancient cities, and all that they're so perfectly preserved, but they're buried. They're absolutely buried. And volcanic eruptions, they're amazing because even 1,000 miles away, pumice and soot and ash can just rain all over a land and virtually resurface it. Okay, we're at the end of this book. I have to show this. This blew my mind. Buckminster Fuller's Dymaxion map. Have you ever heard of the Dymaxion map? I haven't either. But this guy, this inventor, architect, and designer, Buckminster Fuller, was aware of the map problem. All flat surface maps are compromises with truth, he said. His solution, which premiered in Life magazine in 1943, was both beautiful and simple. Fuller turned the Earth into an icosahedron. How you say that? Icosahedron? An icosahedron. A three-dimensional shape made of 20 equilateral triangles. These smaller triangle surfaces minimize the distortion problem. While it makes for a strange and jagged map, it creates a much truer picture of the world. Unfolding the world this way did more than just fix the size of Greenland. It also created a new way to visualize the arrangement of Earth on a map. In this particular layout of Buckminster Fuller's map, the continents appear as one great landmass stretching from Australia to Antarctica. You're not going to believe what this dude's map looks like. So it's for that reason that we chose the Dymaxion map for our world trip map. Anyway, they're not talking about anything now. Where's this guy's picture? Look at this map. So here's the map that you see that we're educated. We're educated to believe this is the distribution of this is the map. It's on a globe. So he makes a map based off these triangles. Look at this right here. I find this very interesting for a couple reasons. Because Plato's solids, the pentagonal dodecahedron of Pythagoras, this is what they thought the world being a construct was based off, was with the pentagonal dodecahedron. So to find this guy who just looked at the Portolan map, the globe, and then created his own version in order to make sense of why Greenland's too big and why the continents aren't exactly where they're supposed to be, look what his map looks like when it's done. Here's the triangles. There is no way to hide the fact that this guy's genius map, which makes the continents all exactly the same size, are supposed to be in proportion to each other. That's a flat Earth map. This is 1943. Look at that. All he did was take the actual globe that's perpetuated by science today and turned it into this geometrical form of 12 perfect equilateral triangles. Turned it into that form, and when he did that, this is the map that appears. Here is a demonstration right there at the bottom. Now, some of you are going to wonder, Jason, why are you so amazed by this? I'm a simulationist, and I understand constructs and forms, and I get that this is a perceiver-based reality. It's not a physical reality. We just believe it is by virtue of the central nervous system. This right here amazes me because it's a very simple formula how to reduce something that has been made too overly complex, and it simplifies it back down to its lowest common denominators using a geometrical form that we know in nature. Here it is. What a genius. Look at that. That taking a globe and rendering it into that geometrical form creates a flat Earth map. I only discovered this yesterday, going through the books in the Archaix library. Blows my mind. Blows my mind. This is the exact same map that you find on the United Nations, the same map you find everywhere. Mark Leakey talks about this map all the time. It's like, damn, it's a flat Earth map. But it's a map that you see on all the flags, all the military orders, all the government institutions. This is the map. The one for the public is the globe. And the continents are all different. But the one for the establishment, the one for those that are in the know, is this map right here. And how is this map produced? This man shows us right here in 1943. Blew my mind. So we're done with the first book. I know Grendel Dark, and I know Tim. I know several of y'all. Omega Lumini, Jamie Robbins. I know all of you guys that have come spent time with me on my property, man. You want to see this book? It's right here. I got it. I'll let you check it out. Yeah, man. I may post this map on Twitter if y'all want me to. Yeah, it blows my mind. We're going to show this to Flat Earth Dave. It just blows my mind. Such a simple geometrical form right here, created. This is the map. Fuller Dymaxion map. I've never heard of that. 20 equilateral triangles. Man. Look how small Greenland is now compared to what? On the globe map, Greenland is larger than the whole North America. Here it is now down. Now here it is down to scale. Here it is down to scale. Notice what you don't see. You don't see that BS that people are trying to show that was based off fantasy, where Mount Meru is at the North Pole, and that you don't have that fantasy version of 4 islands there, and trying to say Atlantis is there, trying to say that Jay Dreamer's plasma apocalypse using this fantasy map from the 1500s has all that there at the North Pole. That's not what I got. I have a book from the 1890s about a guy who went and got 2 Eskimos, and he paid them to escort him as close as he could, as close as to the North Pole as they would go. And when the land started going down and they started seeing a lot of vegetation and greenery, those Eskimos panicked. I have that book in my library. Those Eskimos panicked and told him, we can't go any further. Our ancestors were told in the old time that we'll know the time when it's time to go back home. And he's like, what are you talking about? He says that they told him that's the way home. He says that's where we came from, but they've been cast out into the world and they can't come back. So it blew his mind. He traveled even further and further, started seeing fox and rabbits and all these things that were nowhere that far north. And the temperature rose, and he's starting to see plants and greenery and small trees. And once he got to the real far north, there wasn't a North Pole. It was a gigantic rim that looked down in a huge, massive crater, and he got scared and he wouldn't go any further because he had lost his Eskimo escorts days back. But he ventured on. Yeah, man, it's crazy. It's crazy, guys. It's crazy. We'll get into that too. I've got four books in the Archaix library from the 1800s about the North Pole and Antarctica. I'm gonna tell you now, they've been very interesting, going flipping through them and all that, but I haven't actually sat down and read them. Only so many hours in a day, only so many days in a year. I'm just blows my mind. This map blows my mind. It really does. Really does. So we have a bigger book to look at with even more incredible. If you think that this book had some good stuff, the one I'm about to show you now is going to blow your mind. Our world is not what you think. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second so I can check my chat because I've been running my mouth. I need to drink this water. I just covered some of the more salient points in just one book in the Archaix library. Those of you who have been to my property, you already know I have a massive library. I could probably do 50 of these videos and still not cover everything I have on just ancient mysteries. All right. So the second book is even more compelling. That's why I saved it for second. I have twice amount of data to show you out of the second book. So let's see. I've been going an hour and 16 minutes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure an hour and 16 minutes from now, I'm still going to be talking about this book. So if you guys are more than willing, so am I. Because this is only one. We still have 2 more videos to go. 2 more. Chat looks good. Keep on running, Jason. Yep. Yeah, man, I get excited about this type of stuff. As long as I know other people are absorbing it and seeing what I'm seeing, I'm all excited about it. I get frustrated when I come across these know-it-alls. Yeah, man, these know-it-alls on Twitter. Oh my God, man, they just know everything. They know everything and don't even realize, man, why are you citing uniformitarian data? Why are you sitting here trying to tell me I'm wrong and you're citing potassium argon dating? What are you doing, man? Yeah, they just don't know. They just don't know that every single relative dating method has been disproven. They've all been shown to be fraudulent. Just so crazy. Shit just gets me. All right, so let's go ahead and share my screen and let's start the second book. Some of y'all are going to think this is some straight up Charles Fort stuff here. All right. I'm going to move this aside. Okay. Here's the second book, Mysteries of the Unexplained. And remember, these books are everywhere. They're everywhere. And all these stores don't think they're worth what they're worth. They're so cheap. So this is a famous discovery. It's been talked about in a whole lot of books. So this is a cast of fossilized sandal or boot prints. Probably sandal is what they think. But these are fossilized sandal prints that are in 600 million year old strata. The reason scientists believe the strata is 600 million years ago is because this little fella here, you can't really see it, but there's a bunch of famous pictures of it, and I showed it on my channel before, is an anatomically perfectly correct trilobite, which was supposedly became extinct 600 million years ago. Total bullshit. Total uniformitarian poppycock. But still, that's what they say. But these are fossilized sandal prints, no different than the fossilized bare footprints that we find all over the world of humans, especially, right next to what are supposed to be dinosaur prints, which are nothing but, megafauna era giant reptiles and amphibians. And some of those 3-toed ones are just giant moa, giant wingless birds. Here's a human footprint found in Turkey in volcanic ash deposited some 250,000 years ago. May have been left by an antecedent of Neanderthal man. Man, you guys already know what's wrong with that. Why would you say that? May have been left by an antecedent of Neanderthal man. You have to say that because your dumb brain dead ass was educated under the uniformitarian model. So instead of understanding that this could only be 3 or 4,000 years old, because we already know now that the petrification process isn't nothing that the uniformitarians have told us. They still haven't explained how you petrify a jellyfish. They still haven't explained why all these animals all over the world have been found frozen in stone in the middle of fighting, in the middle of giving birth, with pushing out their young through their their pelvis, dilated pelvic bones. Yeah, they still haven't explained all the anomalies in the fossil record. They just wash over them. They just totally ignore them. But we now know. We now know it doesn't take. Oh, there's a World War II. I just recently saw it. There's a World War II tank been found perfectly fossilized. How did that happen? Because the fossilization process isn't what we've been told. We've been lied. We've been lied to. We've been gaslit so much now. So this could be a human footprint, have nothing to do with Neanderthal at all. It could be 4, it could be 5, it could be 6,000 years old. This poor guy here, Pedro Mountain mummy, amazing because of its adult bodily proportions, has helped perpetuate stories of little people. Why wouldn't it perpetuate stories of little people? It's a little bitty tiny mummy. It's a little person. So in this book, we're not going to go through all of them, but we've got actual discoveries that have been documented by the scientific community at different periods of giants and of pygmies, little bitty tiny people. Here is a skeleton 9 feet 8 inches tall, was recovered from a stone burial mound in Brewersville, Indiana in 1879. A mica necklace was around the neck, and a crude human image of burnt clay embedded with pieces of flint stood at the feet. The mound, between 3 and 5 feet high and 71 feet in diameter, was excavated by Indiana archaeologists, scientific observers from New York and Ohio, a local physician, Dr. Charles Green, and the owner of the property on which the mound stood, a Mr. Robison. The bones were kept by the Robinson family in a basket in a nearby grain mill. They were lost when a flood swept away the mill in 1937. There's so many stories in here. We're not going to go there. Other YouTubers covered giants. But there's a lot of them in here too. There's a lot of them in here too, and pygmies. Giant skull. It's famous. Lovelock Cave. Gigantic size of this skull from Lovelock Cave area on display, along with artifacts and photographs of the grave site at the Humboldt Museum in Winnemucca, Nevada. Mystifies all who see it. That's a big old skull. I would not want to come across that guy. 1973, 2 human skeletons were found on a rock plateau. Bulldozers. It doesn't say a large bone. It doesn't say that size. In 100 million year old strata, humans. Yeah, that's why they don't report this stuff. That's why they don't report it. The tools of tiny people. This article is about little bitty tiny hammers and chisels and forks and tools that could have only been used by very small people, and they made them out of bird bones. Bird bones are very tiny. Can you imagine humans being that small? What would create conditions to make humans that small? And this begs the question, how much of our history is all a matter of perspective? Meaning, I've given you examples in the past about vapor canopy conditions and how it creates larger than life humans under the vapor canopy. And when the vapor canopy is gone, they have children in the first generation are giants, but they're not giant to the Titans. They're moms and dads. They're only gigantic to their children, which are the grandchildren of the Titans. So you have 3 generations. You have the Titans born in a vapor canopy environment. You have the giants, which are born of the Titans after the vapor canopy has collapsed. And then you have normal sized humans who regard their parents as gigantic. But their parents are only sons and daughters of Titans. And the Titans die out. They just fade off. Why? They can't breathe. They can't breathe. So how much of our history is a matter of perspective? Meaning, could we be the giants today that our predecessors wrote about? And that over a period of millennia, we took their traditions, their mythologies, all their stuff, and and transposed it into our literature. So it was on scrolls and vellum and parchment and later books that were our size. But we're reading about giants, automatically thinking the giants were way bigger than us when we're the giants today, because most of the races in the world were way, way smaller than we are today. Is it all a matter of perspective? So this whole section is about strange things that have been found inside coal. Now, we're told that coal is a fossil fuel product. We're told that coal was formed 65 million years ago at the when the KT boundary, or the iridium boundary, was created from some type of celestial impact that killed all the dinosaurs. And that coal is when the world was burned. All the forests were burned and then packed down and compressed from flooding and all kinds of fantasy scenarios of the uniformitarians. This is what we're told. This is how coal formed. Now, we have problems with that. We have a problem with the coal. Coal is due to a cataclysm. There's no doubt, but it wasn't 65 million years ago. How do we know? Because many living organisms have popped right out of coal, like this frog right here. Above is a photograph of a live toad. Mr. Clark of Rugby found embedded in a coal. When they say embedded in a coal, I know our modern frames of reference have us envision a coal lump like a briquette or a bag of coal that we buy from the store, but that's not how it was. These items were found. Coal is now processed. By being processed, crushed down to powder by machines, and then put back together in these little oval nuggets, they keep all these discoveries from the public now. But in the 1800s and in the early 20th century, coal was delivered to your doorstep in a basket, and it was a big old lump of coal. And everybody had a coal pail, a coal chisel and hammer, and your stove only had a small little window. You opened up your window when you used your little coal hammer and you broke off a piece of the big piece that was delivered to your house. You broke that piece off and you put it in there and you used it in your stove. In breaking those pieces off, people found silver necklaces, gold rings, inlaid silver bells with decorative designs. They found little human figurines, and they found live toads, lizards, frogs, and all kinds of stuff. How is that possible? I know how it's possible. I'm just trying to get you to think about it. Nothing happened 65 million years ago. And the beautiful thing about amphibians and reptiles is that they can go in stasis for long periods of time when they're trapped, when they're entombed. Here's a case in point where it happens in nature without any cataclysm, without any stimulus whatsoever other than a natural biocycle shared between the amphibian and a reptile and the earth itself. And that is when a rain season is over. Little fish, frogs, crayfish like crawdads, all the little amphibians or reptiles, tadpoles, all that's in a pond, in a desert, after a real heavy rain, the desert ponds and tanks that still have water after a few days are packed with life. There's fish in there, there's frogs, there's lizards, there's crawdads, they're packed with life, minnows. It's all in a desert. How is that possible? When for the past 11 months, there hasn't been anything but scorching heat. And this whole pond has been cracked as if no water's touched it in 10 years. And sometimes in a desert, it might be 10 years before it rains again in a certain area. But then when it rains 2 or 3 days later, that little pond is full of life. It's because fish, amphibians, and reptiles go into stasis, and they hibernate in that deep mud. And when that deep mud dries off, they put off a film, and that film traps moisture and keeps them alive for years and years. That's how those toads come out of those coal pieces. It wasn't that long ago. It could have been in the Dark Ages. It could have been recently, within 400 or 500 years, that those coal deposits were created. How do we know this? because we have human artifacts and coal deposits everywhere. Remember, in Archaix, I've shown you 3 different books that told us about wooden ships that have all been found in the Americas under mountains. How do you get a wooden ship under mountains? Under a mountain? How that happen? Because the uniformitarian model of how our world, our history is, and the creation of mountains is all BS. It's all BS. Mountains can be created in a day. Jason, you just make that up? No, of course not. We have examples. Poznansky in 1900, 1901, and 1902 excavated Tiahuanaco and Pumapunka all around Lake Titicaca in South America at 12,000 foot altitude and discovered that the entire area used to be the coast. And that Tiahuanaco and Pumapunka were never built at 12,000 foot altitude. They couldn't. The builders wouldn't have been able to breathe. It's too cold. It was an ancient coastline, and fossil remnants of the original coastline have now been discovered in the Andes Mountains in South America, proving that Tiahuanaco was built at sea level. It's at 12,000 feet today because of a cataclysm. Cataclysm had something to do with the coming of the sun. Imagine that. What vapor canopy destroyed that civilization? An astonished toad. Let's see, a huge toad. These are different accounts, guys. In the late 16th century, Ambrose Parry, Henry III's surgeon, saw a huge toad full of life emerge from a large stone just split by workmen near his house at Moudon, France. You remember one of the books I was reading to you in the Archaix library? I was showing you guys that toad. Not the toad, but the pterodactyl-like creature that squawked a couple times and then collapsed, all dehydrated, and died at Gibraltar when the English were dynamiting Gibraltar so they could put a cannonade in the side of the cliff. Oh, they had blasted out like this den, and it was foul smelling, and it was a hollow. And this creature looks like it had been trapped in the stone. They said it was like a pterodactyl. It had been trapped in the stone for like hundreds of years or thousands of years. It was all dried out, but it squawked. Once it was freed, it squawked 2 or 3 times. Just lay down and died, and it smelled terrible. Yeah, there's a lot of accounts like this. An astonished toad was liberated from its snug captivity in a 14-pound nodule of flint by a workman's pickaxe at Blois, France in 1851. The only way this could happen in limestone, the only way this can happen in igneous rock, the only way this can happen in all these different types of materials and in coal is if these creatures were buried in a very wet, humid environment when the stone had not solidified. It didn't solidify. These materials did not petrify until something happened. At the collapse of a vapor canopy, the sun appears. When the sun initially appears at the collapse of the vapor canopy, we don't know how much of the ionospheric protection the vapor canopy takes down with it. We don't know what really happens as soon as a vapor canopy collapses. We have stories and myths and traditions. We know it's terrible, but we also know that our ancestors used to hide in caves and underground anytime these cycles appeared. We know this. We've documented in Archaix. There's 59 underground cities in Turkey where a King Anakos of Phrygia, according to the Frisian legends, was actually hid his people. This would have been 2239 BC. So when a vapor canopy collapses, is the instant appearance of the sun without any atmospheric protections, does it bake the world and create all those layers within minutes? It bakes the whole world. And then it may take hours, it may take days, it may take weeks as the sun keeps appearing day after day after day, the atmosphere begins its armor that protects us from getting incinerated by the sun. Does it actually heal itself in some way? or does some of the moisture from after the collapse of the vapor canopy automatically go back in? Because we know some of it does. It's called the mesosphere. Scientifically, it's known as the mesosphere. It's a very thick layer of the atmosphere with suspended water droplets in it. This is our vapor canopy origin, but right now it's empty. It's called the mesosphere. So I don't know. I'm not qualified to know. I just know that when we put all this data together, it does look like right as soon as a vapor canopy collapses, everything's wet, everything's mushy. All these creatures and animals are in mud and swimming around and then all of a sudden, wham, hard baked in place, just like a kiln, just like a kiln. Sure would make a lot of sense of all the different layers. It would make a whole lot of sense of the polystrate fossils. Let's see. Toads in the coal. The last of the pterodactyls. There's another story about pterodactyls right here in 1856. David Hatcher Childers has several accounts of pterodactyls in the 1800s. I'm not going to read all these. I got over 100 pages to look at. Look at this bell. Can you imagine? Look how decorative that bell is. Look how beautifully ornate that bell is. Discovered in the 1800s inside a lump of coal. Can you imagine getting that bell? Because even in the 1800s, guess what all the locals said that bell came from? They said it came from the pre-flood world. They said the antediluvians made that bell, and the reason it was in the coal was because of Noah's flood. What do we know of as Noah's flood? It's called the day the sky fell, the collapse of the vapor canopy. Even in the 1800s, they had a suspicion that bell was made by antediluvians. Here's a tooth. Here's a human tooth in a coal lump. What is a human tooth doing in a coal lump? Give me my tooth back. During blasting work at Dorchester, Massachusetts, in 1851, the broken halves of a bell-shaped vessel were thrown by the force of the explosion from the vessel's resting place within a bed of formerly solid rock. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was coal. But formerly solid rock. The vase, about 4.5 inches high, was made of an unknown metal and embellished with floral inlays of silver, the art of some cunning workman. It was published in Scientific American. Guys, that's 4.5 inches tall. Look how decorative that is. You're looking at a pre-flood artifact. You're looking at a bell made by humans in the Genesis period of the 1656 years before the flood. This bell was probably made during the reign of the 7 kings of the Anuna, who ruled for 670 years from 2909 BC to the day the sky fell in 2239 BC. This bell was probably made during the reign of the Chinese dragon kings, who ruled 646 years to the great flood of Yu, which would have been 23rd century BC, same as the biblical flood. So crazy. It is just so crazy. There's that tooth. So this was a geode that has the properties of a spark plug. And it's not the only one found. Actual ancient spark plugs dating thousands of years ago have been showed, and they've been shown by William Corliss, they've been shown by Jonathan Gray, and they have been shown by Michael Cremo, or was it Richard Thompson, Michael Cremo in Forbidden Archaeology. Probably more people than that. Workmen quarrying stone near the River Tweed below Rutherford, Scotland in 1844 found a piece of gold thread embedded in a rock 8 feet below ground level. A small piece of thread was sent to the offices of the local newspaper, the Keslow Chronicle, for the inspection of the curious. What is gold thread doing 8 feet embedded in solid rock? I'm telling you, when the day the sky fell, what was formerly solid rock was soft ground. It was diluvial. It was very wet. And when the day the sky fell, all the materials on the surface got mixed together. It's all wet. Everybody's swimming around in slime and muck. And then once the sky was clear of the collapsing canopy, the sun passed over and burned the world hard. This has always been interesting to me. These are the radio halos coming off polonium. So these photographs show polonium halos in mica and a uranium halo in fluorite below. The formation of polonium halos defies explanation by current physical laws. Basically, what they're saying here is that the existence of these radio halos being preserved under a microscope, you can see see that blur, that bright white line in a blur. These are radio halos. They have a half-life of like a fraction of a second. A fraction of a second is their half-life, meaning they're almost instantaneously gone as soon as they appear. They are a radio halo. As soon as the polonium is created, the radio halo goes out. So how did the halos get preserved to be seen optically in solid rock? This has been a great mystery. A lot of creationists lean on these radio halos that are coming off of uranium and polonium, because the basement rock is granite all over the world. And yet everywhere in granite, we find polonium halos. The radio halos on polonium are still fixed. They're still there. They shouldn't be there. At least 1 second after the formation of the granite, the halos would have dissipated. They should not be there, but they're preserved perfectly in granite, which is a high crystalline rock. For the radio halos to be preserved like that can only mean one thing. The basement rock, which goes down miles and miles and miles and miles, called the crust of the earth. The basement rock had to have been created instantaneously. Once you take granite and you apply a tremendous amount of heat to it, it's no longer granite. It becomes rhyolite. After rhyolite, I believe it becomes basalt. But anyway, this is another great mystery showing that our world isn't what you think. This right here, it's created instantaneously. Oh, this is a fun one here. This is a fun one here. So these crossword puzzles appeared in the London Daily Telegraph just before D-Day in World War II. By coincidence, the solutions to the encircled clues were Allied code words for the planned invasion of Europe. Do you see how many circles? These are all the ones that were published the day before the invasion, and all the code words are here in the answers to the crossword puzzles. The reason, this is a big circle too. They didn't circle it very good. All this, it's a lot of them. That's a lot of them. Okay. The reason I find humor in this is because you're being gaslit by the publisher of this book. Yeah, this book right here, Mysteries of the Unexplained. Yeah, you're being gaslit. That is too coincidental. What form of communication can a snitch rely on if they're trying to give the information in real time to someone, and they need to get the information to them before the event, and they're in a totally different country, and it's in the 1940s, and you don't have a cell phone? What's the best way to do it? You can't use a landline because they'll trace it to you and you'll get caught. What is the best way to send secret information and do it publicly so you know that the people that are looking for the information, because they already have the cipher, are going to be able to know. Yeah, somebody in the United States snitched, and somebody in London was waiting on the intel. There it is. I'm not trying to hear that. I'm not even trying to hear that, man. As soon as I saw that, I laughed. Like, hell no. Hell no. You're trying to pass that off as coincidence. It's not coincidence. Somebody in the United States was snitching. Had 2 cups on the string. That's a good one. An iceberg in the sky. In July 1975, a large block of ice fell through the roof of the Melky's home in Dunstable, Bedford, England. At the time of the incident, the family was engrossed in a TV movie about the Titanic. As the ice crashed through their ceiling, they were tensely waiting for the ship to strike the fatal iceberg. This is a perfect example of our world is not what you think. And the Christians have it right. Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am among them. And in the Old Testament, a 3-fold cord is uneasily broken. This is showing you a very fundamental dynamic about our reality. This family, a collection of souls, all have their mind on the exact same thing, and together they're doing it, sharing an experience, and they're all emotionally charged. And they're in that television watching this, and they all know the story. They already know the Titanic's going to hit an iceberg, but it hasn't happened in the show they're watching. And they're in it. 1975, this family's all vibrating on the same frequency, which creates amplitude. They're sending a signal out to the simulacrum, and man, a simulacrum bounced that signal right back. They're expecting an iceberg. They got one right through their roof. Many situations like this have happened. I have whole books in my library showing nothing but paranormal activities of these same things. People call it coincidence. It's not coincidence. They made that happen inadvertently. See. Okay, so there's several pages here on spontaneous combustion, but there's over a dozen pages of just account after account after account. I wanted to bring this to you guys' attention because spontaneous combustion of humans is something that has been suppressed quite a bit. And you don't see a lot of people even going to the old records. There should be YouTubers on this everywhere. There should be whole videos on spontaneous combustion ever since the Lahaina fires, ever since the Los Angeles fires, the New Mexico, the area in New Mexico, all these really strange fires that have been happening should have brought all this back to the table, because all this happened in the 16, 17, 1800s. Spontaneous human combustion. This is a famous illustration called Lady Ablaze. In engraving, a human just erupting into flames. Look, I got several pages of this. Mrs. Wright, the mother of John Wright, a London linen draper, was hospitalized for severe burns from which she was not expected to recover. Her injuries were the culmination of a series of strange, spontaneous fires that had been plaguing the Wright household since January 5th, 1820. Guys, over and over and over is just accounts in here. This woman's in the kitchen and she just starts burning. And people are in strange places. The kitchen, I get it. A lot of critics will say, "Oh, she was in the kitchen. She caught fire." No. There's people in their vehicles. There's people on their boats. There's people in their backyards. They just automatically. There's people, old women rocking in their chair, and all of a sudden the fire is so intense that the chair stays there with just slight evidence of being burned. while the whole human cadaver is torched. What in the hell is this? Anyway, there's so many accounts in this book, and I've read other. I have other books about spontaneous combustion. So many. This one happened on a cold day. It was 8 degrees. It was 8 degrees outside, a very cold day in 1835. This person, whoa. He saw a bright flame several inches high, about the diameter of a dime, somewhat flattened at the top. He immediately slapped it with his hand, but to no avail. Hamilton kept his head and reasoned that cutting off the oxygen supply should extinguish the flame. He cupped his hands over the spot of burning flesh. His presence of mind saved his life, because indeed the flame went out. Dark yellow fuzz, penknife, treat the wound as an ordinary burn. Anyway, they're just showing all the anomalous evidence that goes with it. 1847, a French couple was indicted for murdering the man's father and burning his body to conceal the crime. They claimed that the 71-year-old man was found in a state of combustion in his bed on January 6th of that year. So they went to prison, or they were executed, when this guy actually burned in his bed, which is actually more common. You guys don't realize this is more common than you think. Spontaneous human combustion is very well documented. Whole bunch of accounts in here. Ottawa, Illinois. Mr. and Mrs. Patrick Rooney, their son John, and their hired hand, John Larson, sat around the kitchen table celebrating the holiday with a jug of whiskey Farmer Rooney had just brought back from town. Larson had a few drinks and went off to bed. John Rooney stayed for a while, but eventually left for his farm a mile away. Larson, rising early, came down Christmas morning to do his chores. He tried to strike a match on the iron kitchen stove, but found to his surprise that the stove was covered with a layer of greasy soot. Alarmed, he quickly struck the match against his thumbnail and lit the lamp. To his horror, he saw Patrick Rooney sitting dead in a chair. There was no sign of Mrs. Rooney. Larson rushed out, saddled a horse, and galloped madly to John Rooney's farm. When Larson and young Rooney got back, they found what remained of Mrs. Rooney under a 3 by 4 foot hole in the floor. On the bare ground, a couple feet below, were a burned piece of skull, 2 charred vertebrae, a foot, and a small pile of ashes, all that remained of the 200-pound woman. Now, what's interesting about all these spontaneous human combustion episodes is that the houses never burn. The beds never burn. It's just the people. And to get that intense of a heat built up in such a local area, everything else would have burned too. There's just a whole. I'm not going to go through all these accounts. There's so many of them. There's just so many of them from different time periods. Retired school teachers, constables found people burned to death. And the common denominator is that nothing else burned, just the people. All these are different accounts. Yeah, man, somebody needs to do YouTube videos just on all these accounts out of general interest. Can't believe that spontaneous human combustion hasn't come back on the table ever since all these dew weapon type fires. When truth is strange as fiction. An illustration from Charles Dickens' book, Bleak House, shows William Guppy and a friend as they arrive at Crook's house, only to find he had combusted. Nothing of him remained. So we have spontaneous human combustion in a Charles Dickens deal. Also, Frederick Marryat's 1834 novel, Jacob Faithful, also has spontaneous human combustion. In fact, all these famous researchers all talked about it back in the day and wrote about spontaneous human combustion in their time period. And yet it's something you hardly hear about. Charles Fort was like one of the last great researchers to talk about it a lot. Man, here's even more accounts. I got a lot. I photographed all these pages. It's a big book. The Body of Wayman Wood, 1956. Look at it. Here's an interesting aside. Children are rarely mentioned as victims of spontaneous combustion, but Ricky Pruitt of Rockford, Illinois, may have been one of the few unfortunate exceptions. The 4-month-old infant died of severe burns in the spring of 1959, but there were no clues as to what had caused them. His garments showed no scorch marks, nor did the bedding of the crib in which he was found. What in the hell? I'm done. I'm done with that. It's just too bizarre. Look, maybe I'm not done with it. Look, here's an illustration of, here are people, spontaneous combustion inside of a vehicle. Here's another one of a baby carriage, 1973. We don't want to read that. So now we get into cattle mutilation. Cattle mutilation is something that I've talked about a little bit on my channel because of the anomalies. The yellow orbs that we have seen inside of volcanoes before volcanic eruptions, the yellow orbs that have been seen inside the funnels of tornadoes by farmers in their underground attics looking up into the funnel. The same yellow orbs that have been seen inside the wave of a tsunami as it hits land, the same orbs that have been photographed and filmed. I've showed them on my channel that flow over the fields, creating agroglyphs, crop circles. That in the early Renaissance period, they were calling them the mowing devils. But these same orbs have created all kinds of phenomena. In more modern times, they've been called Foo Fighters when they've been seen in aerial combat situations in World War II, maybe even in World War I. But these same glowing orbs that were also seen that synchronized together in a triangular formation and then basically snuffed out of our reality, our mathematical construct. They just pulled them out of Malaysian flight MH370. Ashton Forbes has done a tremendous amount of research on there. Now, he and I differ on something. Ashton Forbes is more than welcome to come back to my channel because I know he's got a lot of more evidence. He has not stopped on the MH370 deal, but he and I are disagreeing about what caused it. Because I've been revealing all kinds of information in Archaix about these orbs. These orbs are responsible for all these anomalies in human history. They're responsible for all this weird storms. They've been seen inside unusual lightning storms as well. So they're also really big in the Bigfoot phenomenon. Where Bigfoot is seen, so are orbs. They're also very, very prevalent, there's that word again, in cattle mutilation. Cattle mutilation episodes. The orbs have been seen multiple times around dead horses, goats, cattle, dogs that have been found. And what's crazy is the incisions. They're too perfect. It's like a laser totally took the internal organs out of a cow. Now this has been going on for a long period of time. Ashton Forbes thinks that the military industrial complex is in possession of technology that can phase out and teleport aircraft out of here. I don't believe that. I believe that we do have some pretty good technologically advanced stuff, but I believe that it's a breakaway civilization that's utilizing these technologies, and they're in our underworld, and they've been there for a very long time. And in every time period, they're always trying to get us to look up, trying to get us to convince us that it's always something higher, like gods, demons, and extraterrestrials, when all this activity, human disappearances, 411 cases, and all these human populations that come up disappearing right when a flood happens, right when a volcano goes up, right when remember all these ancient cities we've been finding, where are all the skeletons? No, we don't find them a lot unless they've been buried by a volcano instantly, like in Pompeii and Herculaneum, and also below those two cities in the ruins of the Avellino culture eruption from the 17th century BC. So that's the only difference that Ashton Forbes and I have. I respect his research. I respect his opinions. I just think that we're dealing with something because we have documents going back 500 years of orb activity being responsible for all these things. I think his focus on the orbs doing what they did to Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, it's a breakaway civilization in the underworld that has this technology, not the U.S. government. It's just me. Just me. I need to move this. All right. All right, so orbs. What is all this about? Hey, this is all cattle mutilations. This is a skeleton of a horse that died strangely when something was seen in the sky. Yeah. I mean, these have been studied. Like this one right here talks about the Texas Department of Public Safety. That's big. The Texas Department of Public Safety did forensic studies on these, trying to figure out what's going on. These internal organs are being removed from these cows. You don't come to Texas cattle rustling horse. They will do something to your ass here in Texas for stealing cattle and stealing horses. But yeah, Texas Department of Public Safety investigated these, trying to figure out what's going on, because it's crazy. It's, you know, it's all blamed on UFO activity, but the only thing that's ever seen are these orbs. Now, remember, I don't believe these orbs are entities. In the Archaix perspective, which I have documented to the best of my ability, we're not dealing with the orb as an intelligence in and of itself. We're dealing with the orb as a range finder for a technology that is able to do things at a distance. That's why in a lot of these UFO accounts, we have these pilots that say the orbs are acting erratically. They're rangefinders, but they're being used by somebody far away, looking through a portal, because they're not looking at them personally, looking through a device, trying to get that orb close enough in order to activate it, in order to pull men and materials out of the mathematical field where they're located, where the rangefinder's honing in on them, and to pull them to wherever they're being pulled to. So anyway, these are just a lot. Now here's another thing. The men in black, the hooded people in black. This is another common denominator with the orbs. Bigfoots, all the full gamut of violent atmospheric phenomena, from hurricanes, tsunamis, tornadoes, earthquake. Orbs are seen a lot during earthquake activity. But here it is. Eyewitness account of hooded people in black during these orbs and cattle mutilations. Excuse me. I keep inventing a word. Mutilations. Here's a square cut I was telling you about. A square cut. It doesn't even make sense. It's not like somebody's using a knife to get these organs out. It is far more sophisticated. Yeah, there's a bunch of these too. Let me get through them. Oh, here it is right here. Here's a nice picture. So these animals are getting butchered. So this guy takes a picture of the field where these animals had these organs removed from them. They were killed. He takes a picture of the field. In the photograph are the orbs, but the naked eye couldn't see them. Yeah, there's that Texan right there. There's a Texan right there. No, that's New Mexico. State police investigating this cow, had his organs removed. This has been going on for a long time too. Here's a great story, retroactive magic. Remember the theme, our world is not what you think. Listen to this. While he was in the Congo in 1682, the Italian missionary Father Jerome Merola da Sorrento heard a curious story demonstrating the sometimes fatal effects of superstitious fear. During a journey, a young black man had spent the night at a friend's house, and in the morning, the friend had prepared a wild hen for breakfast. This was a food that young people were forbidden to eat by inviolable tribal custom, and the visitor asked his friend if the dish he had prepared was really wild hen. The host replied that it was not, and the young guest ate a hearty breakfast. A few years later, the two men met again, and the friend asked his former guest if he would eat a wild hen. No, he said, that was impossible. He had been solemnly warned by a magician never to eat that food. The friend laughed and asked why he would refuse to eat the dish now, when he had been perfectly happy to eat it before. As soon as the guest learned the truth about the breakfast his host had once served him, he began to tremble violently and within 24 hours was dead, the victim of his own fear. American Anthropologists, new series 44-169, April-June 1942. The world is full of stories just like this. A double mystery, combining a strange disappearance with an even stranger appearance, took place October 24th, the year 1593, when a soldier stationed in Manila reported for palace guard duty in Mexico City. Instantly, noticed because his uniform set him apart from the others, he was interrogated. The soldier, baffled at finding himself in a strange land, said that he had been instructed that very morning to report for duty at the place in Manila, adding that the governor of the Philippines had been killed the night before. The incredulous authorities slapped him in jail. 2 months later, news reached Mexico that confirmed his story. The governor had indeed been murdered in Manila on the night before the soldier turned up in Mexico. The soldier was allowed to return to the Philippines. So, somehow the programming attached to this soul, wearing this avatar that belongs to the simulacrum in the year 1593, somehow this guy's programming got jumped. There was a glitch, and he woke up on a totally different continent. This man woke up somewhere completely different, far away in Mexico City. So, but they were able to verify his story. He went to sleep in Manila, woke up in Mexico. Spent 2 months in jail before the news could spread about the murder in Manila. That story reminds me of many of the accounts that you find in like Raymond E. Fowler. Also, John Keel. John Keel's written some good books like that. Our Haunted Planet. The Times of London, November 6, 1840, printed this account from the correspondent in the Bahamas. A large French vessel bound from Hamburg to Havana was met by one of our coasters and was discovered to be completely abandoned. The cargo, composed of wines, fruits, silks, etc., was in the most perfect condition. The captain's papers were all secure in their proper places. The only living things on board were a cat, some fowls, and several canaries half dead with hunger. The vessel, which must have been left within a very few hours, contained several bales of goods addressed to different merchants in Havana. She is very large, recently built, and called Rosalie. Of her crew and passengers, no intelligence has been received. This is really weird, but it's been recorded hundreds of times. These are called derelict ships. And the books of the 16, 17, and 1800s are packed. One of the more famous ones is the Mary Celeste. But no one knows what's happening to these people because the rowboats, the lifeboats, are always intact. No pirates, no enemies of the realm took the ships because all the prizes are still intact. It's not piracy. We know what Blackbeard did. His name was Edward Teach. We know what Blackbeard did in his piracy because he was mad. He wasn't a bad guy. He just hadn't been paid by the crown. He had been screwed over and over by the English Admiralty. So he resorted to piracy. But in taking prizes, you sell the ships, you sell the cargo, and there's many safe ports in the Caribbean that they could do that, like Port Royal. So there was this ship and many hundreds of other ones have been found. Derelict ships are still found today. But it's just like Charles Fort says, all these mysteries and all these enigmas and all these anomalies occur. There's always someone who appears to provide just enough of a story that it gets swept away. Charles Fort said this: every single time there's a mystery that introduces the field, someone appears with the explanation, and the explanation is really ridiculous to the awakened, but it's always just enough so the masses leave it alone. So Charles Fort said in 1919, Book of the Damned. So these derelict ships, the people are gone. We've got some, I record in my Chronicon, I've got better ones than this book did. In my Chronicon, I've got some really interesting ones, like the SS Bannock burn that disappeared in the Great Lakes. And the Great Lakes were combed. Even modern instruments have been looking for the USS Bannock burn. It disappeared. And the only thing that was interesting about it is 2 ships within 5 minutes saw the USS Bannock burn. And then they reported bright lights in the clouds above, and the USS Bannock burn was gone. All the men. 300 Swedish cadets in World War II vanished. Yeah, vanished. This happens over and over and over. This has probably been going on for thousands of years. But these ships, sometimes people are honeymooning on a yacht. Everything, the food's intact. There's no evidence of a struggle whatsoever. The family pet is starving to death on the yacht. Guys, you have no idea. This is still going on all over the world, and it's almost never reported. They have their just good enough excuse. It's always piracy. You guys know, man. You guys already know, man. We got pirates all over the place. It's not safe to sail the seas. So even modern day pirates with machine guns, this is their excuse every time. But these ships are found with the provisions intact. The story of the green children found in Spain is remarkably similar to that of the 2 green children, a boy and a girl, who emerged from a cave in Woolpit, England in the 11th century. The girl said they came from the sunless land. What in the hell? The 11th century is the early Middle Ages. That is the end of the last vapor canopy cycle. She's talking about a sunless land, and they have green skin. Are they living underground? Are they from a breakaway civilization hiding from the last vapor canopy? What in the hell? Are we living in 2 different timelines where a bunch of people on the surface world have no idea what a whole nother element of the human race is going through? Having to live in the underground for these vapor canopy periods to be over with before the sun comes out and they can come back to the surface? What in the hell? So the children from the Woolpit deal of the 11th century aren't an anomaly anymore. Now we find out from this historical account that the same thing happened in Spain, where 2 children were found with the same green skin. Now, in this story of the Woolpit, We're going to read this now. No, we're going to read the Spanish account. 2 children appeared from a cave near Banjul, Spain in August 1887. Their skin was green and their clothes were of an unfamiliar material. They could not speak Spanish and their eyes appeared oriental. At first, they would not eat and the boy died, but the girl survived and learned enough Spanish to explain that they had come from a sunless land, where one day a whirlwind had swept her and her companion away and deposited them in the cave. Understandably, this did little to dispel the wonders surrounding her. She died in 1892, her origins still unknown. That's amazing. It's amazing, and it makes me want to show you the Voynich manuscript. So let's put this aside. Put that aside. I'm going to get out of there. I'm going to stop sharing. I still got more to go through. I'm just going to stop sharing this. So I want to show you this. Okay, the Voynich manuscript. I'll probably end up doing a whole video on this, but the 2 children from Woolpit and the 2 children in Spain, they're not the anomalies. We have several stories from the medieval period of children being found way out in the forest. There are many accounts where like in folklore, fairy tales, nursery rhymes, where children of the Europoid stock go out into, like Hansel and Gretel, Pied Piper of Hamelin type stories. They go out in the forest and they have playmates and they have friends out there and all kinds of, and they spend their days out there. And when they come home, they get chastised because of their imagination. They're told it's lying, but the children swear up and down. They call them fairies, but they say they look just like us. And we laugh and play and we do music and we play games and we play with animals and the animals aren't scared of them and they got green skin. So the Voynich manuscript is an anomaly because it is a book that is absolutely so intricately detailed that it becomes a stretch of the imagination to claim that its author just made all this stuff up a long time ago, like 700 years ago. The Voynich manuscript is amazing. No one knows what the writing is. It has not yet been deciphered. Many people claim to, and they come up with all kinds of nobody who has ever claimed to have translated the Voynich deal, because U.S. cryptographers were put on it. AI was they attempted to use AI to figure it out. So far, no one who has ever claimed to translate this has ever agreed with any other translator. So this book is amazing. The reason it's amazing is because everything in here is what plants would look like under a high-pressure environment. Botanists today are baffled by the Voynich manuscript. The reason they're baffled by it is because the different types of plants and weeds and stuff that we have today don't look like this, but they would under a vapor canopy. Everything here is changed and modified, and it's extremely detailed, botanical, and everything's unrecognizable as a species in here. But we already know. That's where, remember what I told you cactus came from. Cactus, what is really important for us to know about cactus? Geographically, where are cactus native to? Deserts. What are deserts? Former ocean beds. Cactus are not found in the fossil record. There are no fossil specimens of cacti. So what is cactus? Cactus is something that is recognizable today, but it only grows under high pressure environments in the ocean. So the Voynich manuscript, to me, I'm finding more and more evidence because it's got people. Humans are in here. Humans are partying and dancing and having a blast, and they're not wearing any clothes. I wouldn't either in a vapor canopy. Anyway, we're going to do a video on this. We're going to do a video on the Voynich manuscript and the mysteries. But I am pretty much convinced that the anomalies in the Voynich manuscript basically answer for us what the vapor canopy ecology is. Someone wrote a book in a language and they were trying to tell us something, and it's in this book. The reason we know it's a message is because the art is so meticulously detailed. They wanted us to know all this stuff. It's all in here. It's awesome. So the Voynich manuscript. Hey, you know what? A vapor canopy environment, I might have to start doing my push-ups again. We're going to be running around naked. We're going to get to know each other real well. Yeah, man. So the very types of humans with the green skin that are from a breakaway civilization that every once in a while come in contact with the surface, well, they may be living in the Voynich vapor canopy world. Now, I'm also going to, because our world is not what you think. I know some of you are going to say, oh, Jason's off his rocker. You know what? I just can't listen to him no more, because I'm about to tell you something else that makes more sense than any uniformitarian idea of the world that we live in today. Because this is a simulated environment, because every bit of this is processed through the filters of the central nervous system, because we're not really tasting, smelling, hearing, touching anything. The signals that we receive make us believe that we are. So if we live on a flat plane in a toroidal environment, which is what magnetism shows us, and that the simulated world that we're in being built off planar mechanics with the toroidal dome over us that has all the evidence of curvature and motion, all motions in the sky. We're not moving at all. We're on a flat plane. If that's true, you can't have one world. You're going to have two. The reason I'm saying this is because the dome, our sky, our stellosphere would be the inside of the mushroom-like toroidal field. We can call it the north node. But equally true would be another world that faces the south node. What if all this evidence, everything we've put together, is actually a cycle where our consciousness shifts from one toroidal node to the other, and the other one is perpetual vapor canopy, and the one we're in right now is devoid of the vapor canopy? What if this entire plane flips, and when it does, we're in the vapor canopy world where we are where the green children came from. We are where the breakaway civilization is. What if all the evidence of visitors and technology in the ancient world, and all these things that we find anomalous, isn't so anomalous? They're coexisting with us in the other node of our reality. One world facing up, one world facing down. Neither one of them know they're upside down when they're upside down. One of them is a vapor canopy environment. One of them is the world we have here, the biosphere that we know today. Flips like a magnet. It's a cycle. Just a thought. So let's go to back to sharing the screen. Oh, this is 2 hours. This is almost 2.5 hours, guys, and we're not done. And this is only the first video. We still got another one tomorrow and another one on Sunday. And then Flat Earth Dave on Monday. Let's see. Share my screen. I can't believe I've gone this long without a cup of coffee. What in the hell got into me? All right, share screen. Thank you, Code Red Girl. I just saw that when I was phasing out the picture. So, According to many writers on UFOs and on the occult, hundreds of British troops were mysteriously abducted by a cloud that settled over them as they advanced toward the Turkish positions during one of the battles of the Gallipoli campaign in 1915. Wow, isn't that almost the same year as the Angels of Mons? Okay, the source for this story is a statement written 50 years after the incident by 3 New Zealand soldiers who deposed that they had watched a dense, solid-looking cloud shaped like a loaf of bread settle on the ground in the path of an advancing column of troops. After the men walked into it, the account went on, the cloud lifted, leaving no one behind. So 3 different men, ex post facto, recalled a story of a strange cloud appearing during the battle and a whole bunch of British troops vanishing. So, could have been a super weapon, could have been something like that. I don't know. What I do know is that it's very interesting, this right here. The 34,000 British and Empire troops who died at Gallipoli, 27,000 have no known grave. In the light of such widespread carnage, how many more strange disappearances do these bald statistics hide? So, even the military statistics show that what these 3 men saw was probably true. Because after World War I and World War II, we have really good body counts. We know pretty much where the dead. MIA, there's not that many MIA compared to those who we have actually found the cadaver, the deceased. But in this battle, where it was actually remembered by 3 different people that a cloud, a weird shaped cloud, came down from the sky during the Battle of Gallipoli and literally swallowed a whole bunch of British troops. And yet here we have 27,000 of these troops, their bodies have not been found. The reason I'm focusing on this is because I have explained to you in many presentations that we have a lot of evidence that natural disasters, like right now, the floods that are going on, right? All these weird fires and floods that are going on. What's the common denominator? Missing people, missing children. Yeah. How does a flood? How do people come up missing? People come up missing because people disappear them. And then they cover up the evidence with a natural disaster. The same thing I told you the Phoenix phenomenon does. What is the Phoenix phenomenon really known for throughout the historical record? Mass vanishings of human populations, and then doing away with the evidence by resurfacing the world. Volcanic activity and red dust, celestial dust fallout. Everything falls from the sky, guys. We're going to see it here in a minute. Everything falls from the sky. Minnows, fish, turtles, tadpoles, fossils, coins, everything falls from the sky. Sea monster, missionary Hans Egede or something, a person of unquestioned integrity. Hold on, this has got to be British. Missionary Hans Egede, a person of unquestioned integrity. Man, I did that pretty good. Supplied one of the earliest reliable first-hand accounts of a sea serpent sighted near the coast of Greenland. There's a bunch of them here. I'm not going to read them all. There's a bunch of sea serpents and sea monster accounts here. Show you some cool pictures, though. A 60-foot-long sea monster passed just yards from the HMS Daedalus. That's a cool name. According to Captain Peter M. Quahai, in his official report to the British Admiralty, we have really strange things in the Admiralty records. Several books that I have cited for you in Archaix in the past, straight out of the Admiralty records, man, these ship captains were obligated by law to write every single thing they saw. Just like I gave you an account one time about a German U-boat, a submarine captain, what he saw. They literally saw a plesiosaur, like the Loch Ness Monster, outside the window in a German deal. They saw it underwater. It's like, yeah, they recorded that. Creature's supposed to be dead 65 million years ago. I've talked about this too on my channel, the Electon. This is a French ship. The crew members slung a noose around the tail of a giant squid and were about to haul it aboard when the rope slipped. They were left with only a 40-pound fragment. But the French ship Electon tried to catch a giant kraken. Biologist Gladkey, drew this sketch, published in a Russian newspaper in 1964, of the monster he and other Moscow University researchers saw at Lake Care. Yeah, that's a brontosaurus or a plesiosaur right there. I would believe the Russians before I would believe my own government. Why? Why would I believe the Russian scientists before I would believe my own government? Let me tell you why. Because in the 1950s, the Russians investigated the moon and discovered that it was either holographic or plasmoid. The Russians realized after they burned up a bunch of dogs, mice, and monkeys that we can't get through the Van Allen belts. We can't get through the radiation belt. We kill everything. The Russians admitted they've never been to the moon. The Russians even published that man can't get to the moon in the 1950s. But our government, the United States, created in 1958 a PSYOP agency using U.S. taxpayer money to fool you into believing that we could get to the moon, and then fleece the hell out of us with a bunch of tax money in order to perpetuate the hoax that we sent a golf cart wrapped in tinfoil to the moon so they could run around in something that couldn't even fit in the capsule. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Our government gaslit the shit out of us. NASA's nothing but a tax. Nessie, Loch Ness Monster. This is a plesiosaur. Now, the fact that the plesiosaurs aren't hardly seen anymore, but they were a long time ago. Here's an actual cadaver of a plesiosaur found in 1977. Yeah, the Japanese were so proud of that find, they put it on their stamps. But, let's see if I'm still sharing. Good. Thank you, Fiona. So, the reason why all of these dinosaur so-called creatures, which are nothing but megafauna, they're nothing but amphibian and reptilian megafauna. That's all they are. Just like the mammoths and the woolly rhinoceros and the giant wingless birds, the emus and giant armadillos and all that stuff, giant beavers. So this is just megafauna. Megafauna is created from vapor canopy conditions. And then when the vapor canopy collapses, which is a cycle, creatures don't grow that big no more. And most of them suffocate. They can't breathe anymore. Requires a lot of oxygen to be that big. So we don't really see them anymore because our technologies in the last 100 years have pretty mujust poisoned all the lakes. They're just not around. They've died out. And besides, they were probably very prolific at the end of the Dark Ages and the beginning of the Middle Ages. We know they were in the Middle Ages because all the medieval knights were fighting these things. It's in all the art. Even fighting giant snails. See the picture I got from Martin Leakey of a knight fighting a giant snail? Yeah. Knights fighting bullfrogs, giant frogs? Yeah. A big old giant frog that's 3 feet high off the ground is going to be dangerous to your babies. Yeah. That tongue will go 18, 19 feet, hit that baby and gone. Yeah, it's not cool. Frogs are like surgical strikes with that tongue. Ask any fly. So we have here ancient historians, including Procopius, Ammianus Marcellinus, and Theophanes, record a fall of black dust in the year 472 BC, during which the sky seemed to be on fire. The location of the fall is uncertain, but may have been Constantinople. During the reign of King Charlemagne, or Emperor Charlemagne, 9th century AD, coming right out of the vapor canopy world, an enormous block of ice, 990 cubic feet of it, fell from the sky. That's the exact same time that I'm claiming the vapor canopy collapsed. And when the vapor canopy collapsed in 2239 BC, what have we discussed? The whole sky fractured like glass. And when it did, the ice shards were like icebergs that rained on the surface, followed by all the water held back in the mesosphere. 40 days and 40 nights it rained. After that, the sun came out and burned the world. Here it is right here during the reign of Charlemagne, an enormous block of ice. Well, maybe it was enormous blocks of ice all over the world. A burning object fell into Lake Van, Armenia in the year 1110, turning the waters red. That's interesting. Lake Van is Lake Van, Armenia is like a little north of Assyria. A luminous meteor was seen to fall in Italy in 1652, and near its landing place, star jelly was found. I know you guys remember my William Corliss and Charles Fort videos where I've given several examples of people saw a fallen star or meteorites fall, and they saw the location. They could tell because the geography in the background was higher, and so they knew that the meteorites fell locally. So they went to the area and they found a foul-smelling, putrid jelly that was all over the ground where the falling star had landed. Not a crater, not what NASA's telling you. NASA's trying to tell you that all those caldera, all those volcanic craters that are found all over the world, they're trying to tell you that those are meteorite impacts, and they're all perfectly circular. No, those were created under high pressure when those areas were underwater and gases were coming up from the top. That's how the Archaix structure was created. That's how Meteor Crater out over here in Arizona was created. It wasn't a meteorite impact, despite the fact that the tourist center, I did a video there, the tourist center is trying to gaslight you into all the NASA paraphernalia. Yeah, no rock from space did that. That was subsurface pressure when that area was underwater. Star jelly. Isn't that something? Charles Fort called it star jelly too. William Corliss refers to it as decomposed gelatinous material. Flakes, what is this? Flakes of coal black fibrous material, some as large as tabletops, fell on newly fallen snow near the town of Memel, Lithuania, on the east coast of the Baltic Sea about 1687 AD. That is a cross-calendrical parallel with 1687 BC, the Ogygian deluge, when Phoenix deposited red dust and carbonaceous material all over the world and resurfaced the world. And it's the subject matter of W.J. Perry's Children of the Sun. 551 pages where the man doesn't do anything but show you all the archaeological and anthropological proof from around the world that every single dynasty in the world fell in that year. Cross-calendrical parallel. So the flakes were damp, smelled of rotten seaweed, and tore like paper once dry. They were odor-free. Some of this material was preserved for 150 years. When it was finally examined, it was found to consist partly of vegetable matter, chiefly Conferva crispata, a thread-like green algae, and partly of about 29 species of infusoria, which are protozoans, minute aquatic animals. Process this. The ancients were uniformly of the belief that the sky was an ocean above. We have evidence of tadpoles, amphibians, reptiles, fish, all kinds of crustaceans. We have actual archaeological finds of fossils that have rained from the sky. Our world is not what you think. From the inception of my channel, I've told you that the sky is a hologram hiding something else. Over and over and over, the weirdest things have fallen from the sky. Now we have evidence that the sky is an ocean above, and every once in a while, some of that stuff leaks through and falls to our world. Algae kind of makes you think about the tektites, or it makes me think about the tektites, because another strange anomaly that geologists have pretty much covered up is the origin of tektites. They have all kinds of interesting theories that don't have anything to do with the truth. Tektites are green, crystalline, glass-like minerals or objects that are on the surface of the Sahara Desert and on the surface of the Chinese Taklamakan Desert. They weren't created by the desert. They fell and just stayed right there on the top. Found near Egypt. We are told that lightning hits the desert and the silicates from, being all the sand in the desert, turns into a green like glass. But other researchers have noticed the abundance of tektite material far exceeds what lightning would create. What if the green tektite material is exactly what it is? Crystalline fossilized algae that's fallen from an ocean above. I mean, let's keep things as simple as possible. A foul-smelling substance, the consistency of butter, fell over large areas of southern Ireland in the winter and spring of 1696. According to the Bishop of Cloyne, this stinking dew fell in lumps, often as big as the end of one's finger. Well, you can tell I've been doing a bunch of work on my property lately. Look at my finger. All beat up. My finger all beat up. So here it is. Here it is again. Decomposed, stinking material falling from the sky. Star jelly. January 21st, 1803. A shooting star fell to Earth in Silesia between Barstorf and Freiburg. Its trajectory was low, and witnesses heard a whizzing sound as it went by. For some time, the meteorite seemed to lie burning on the ground, and its point of impact was therefore easily observed. In the morning, a mass of jelly-like material was found on the snow at the landing place. Imagine that. A 10-minute shower of toads near Versailles, France, in June 1833 was witnessed by M. Hurd. They bounced off his umbrella, hopped about on the pavement, and were as numerous as the raindrops. He saw them scattered for about 1,200 feet. Remember my video on the insect rains from a simulated, that's the title, Insect Rains from a Simulated Sky. Yeah, that's just more accounts. There's so many different accounts. On November 11th of the same year, what year is this? 1846. On November 11th of 1846, a luminous object estimated at 4 feet in diameter fell at Lowesville, New York, leaving behind or becoming a heap of foul-smelling jelly. Scientific American, November 28th, 1846. And you wonder why it's so hard to find old issues of Scientific American. Damn. It is. I've been looking. If there's anybody who wants to donate them to the Archaix library, I have a whole bunch of Scientific Americans, but I can't find anything older than the 1880s. I sure would like some before the 1880s because I know that they're omitting a whole bunch of stuff that they don't want you to know. Okay, I've seen that one. Look at this. It's just, only reason I got this because I think it's a cool picture. Imagine that. Yeah, man. There ain't enough fish in this table. This is Oriental. There are no fish on this table. There are no fish. No fish in the market. All of a sudden, the sky starts beating the hell out of you with fish. Yeah, rains of fish are far more common than you would believe. There are books packed with. Charles Fort spends chapters full of rains of fish. rains of lizards, turtles, all kinds of aquatic creatures. And as you saw earlier, algae and protozoan and small shellfish, all raining from the sky. That can't happen unless there's an ocean up there or freshwater reservoirs. Or at least programmed to fall. Flesh and blood fell for 3 minutes and covered some 2 acres of Mr. J. Hudson's farm near Los Nietos, California on August 1869. The day was clear and windless, and flesh fell as fine particles as well as in strips from 1 to 6 inches long. Short, fine hairs also fell with it. In the article on this phenomenon in the San Francisco Evening Bulletin, dated August 9th, 1869, it was also reported that flesh and blood had fallen in Santa Clara County some 2 months earlier. Now, I know many of you want to say that, oh, the blood is just some type of red chemical or red mineral or something, and that could be too. But remember the Phoenix phenomenon in ancient times. Phoenix was the bringer of cinnamon. It used to rain cinnamon all over the world. Cinnamon is a red mineral. So, or sometimes later on it was associated with cinnabar. But in ancient legends, Phoenix was a cinnamon bird. Now, also, I have preserved for you in Archaix in one of my prior presentations that in 1902 over Rome, it rained blood. Many people took samples. In Rome, scientists determined that the material that rained upon the city of Rome in 1902 was indeed blood. You can't make this shit up. I cited the sources on that, or Charles Fort did. A rain of living snakes fell over the southern part of Memphis, Tennessee in 1877. They measured from a foot to 18 inches in length and were presumed to have been swept into the air by a hurricane. But where snakes might exist in such abundance, they fell by the thousands, is yet a mystery. Several acres of ground were covered by a deluge of small fish that fell from a clear sky at Chico, California in 1878. This goes on and on. During a severe hailstorm on May 11th, 1894, a gopher turtle encased in ice fell on Bovina, 8 miles east of Vicksburg, Mississippi. During the same storm, a small block of alabaster, also encased in ice, fell on Vicksburg itself. What? An artifact of human provenance and a gopher turtle encased in ice rained on this place. So this is an account from 1552 right here. Here's the German. This is or Dutch. Here's the account. It's showing little suns and a little crown of thorns because that was the artist's best approximation for the hail. Hailstones fell from the sky, and it looked like the hailstones themselves had little sunbursts on them. And some of them had crowns of thorns on them. It was very weird to the people. And they wrote this account in 1552, Friday the 17th of the month of May. There was a particularly violent thunderstorm in a certain Dutch town called Dordrecht, driving the inhabitants in terror into their homes as if the world were coming to an end. Because for more than half an hour, there was a steady bombardment of horrible hailstones, so that every garden and orchard was destroyed. Some of the hailstones were of gigantic size and peculiar shape. Hundreds of people saw them, including a painter who sketched the hailstones as shown above. Several hailstones had a natural shape of the sun. On others appeared a crown of thorns. Some weighed as much as half a pound. The water from these hailstones smelled as if they were boiling water. This hailstorm was followed by a foul-smelling cloud. It is a wonder what such signs may signify. Feel sorry for them. Destroyed all their stuff. During a heavy snowstorm in 1922, thousands of exotic insects resembling spiders, caterpillars, and huge ants fell on a number of slopes in the Swiss Alps, according to a report. Citing Charles Fort. A ball of limestone fell from the sky near Blekkenstad, Sweden, on April 11, 1925. On landing, it burst into fragments, among which fossil shells and some evidence of a creature resembling a trilobite were found by Professor Hadding of Lund University. I have a few books by John Mitchell. One of them is something Atlantis. I can't remember. It's on sacred geometry. Tiny frogs. Tiny frogs fell by the hundreds on Trowbridge, Wiltshire, England, on the afternoon of June 16, 1939, during a shower of rain. That's Meteorological Magazine. Numerous silver coins fell in the Meshera region in central Russia during a storm in August 1940. Talk about a programming glitch. The simulacrum was glitching on that day. Here's the star jelly. It's called Rot of the Stars. A microscopic view of plasmodium. That's what they're calling star jelly. Plasmodium. Crazy. I'm not going to read all this. They're saying it's putrid. Oh, I'm getting tired. This is interesting. Egyptian papyrus, 3,000 years old. This Egyptian papyrus, more than 3,400 years old, records the sighting of numerous brilliant round objects in the sky by Pharaoh Thutmose III, his army, and his scribes. Interesting note about Pharaoh Thutmose III, he is the one that excavated the Sphinx out of the desert sand and erected the Sphinx stele that explains that the builders of the Sphinx were during the time of the children of Set, and we know those are the Sethites of the pre-flood world. It was during the time of Zep Tepe, the first time, when the Shining Ones ruled. This is all the pre-flood world. An extraordinary fog astonished the colonists in Connecticut one morning in 1758. One of them wrote, about sunrise, at this place was a fog of so strange and extraordinary appearance that it filled us all with amazement. It came in great bodies, like thick clouds down to the earth, and in its way, striking against the houses, would break and fall down the sides in great bodies, rolling over and over. That is a super thick fog to maintain its own structure as it enveloped buildings. You could see the structure of the fog. That's crazy. Our First Century, a book published in 1874, included this 1780 engraving entitled Wonderful Dark Day, which shows daytime farm workers carrying lanterns. It says entitled, but that's a mistake. A lot of books do that. It's not supposed to be entitled. It's supposed to say titled. Wonderful Dark Day is not entitled. It's just titled. Engraving titled Wonderful Dark Day, which shows daytime farm workers carrying lanterns. All right. So during the daytime, the sun went out because of a fog, and it was so dark they had to carry lanterns. That's crazy. This is nice. Here is a commemorative medallion struck in honor of Urbain Jean Leverrier, who had his portrait on one side and on the other 10 planets, including Vulcan, revolving around the sun. As I've showed you in my previous presentations, guys, Vulcan remains a mystery because it does not move around the sun the way that the stellosphere shows that Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, all on the belt of the ecliptic. Vulcan moves completely differently. It was seen in month of May, in the middle of the month of May in 1764, which is the Phoenix year on the 138-year Phoenix timeline. Astronomer Hoffman saw Vulcan, and it moved straight out of the northern node of space, passes over the ecliptic, passing over the sun. It obscured the sun. It darkened the sun. It was seen by 500,000 Europeans with the naked eye. Hoffman watched it, and it vanished instantly as soon as it passed the ecliptic. It's gone. Vulcan is invisible because it's not on the ecliptic. Leverrier is not the only one to have seen Vulcan. Vulcan has been seen multiple times. Charles Fort and William Cordes, probably between them, have 20 to 30 different astronomical sightings of Vulcan in the 1700s and 1800s. But Vulcan, for all intents and purposes, my friends, Vulcan is Phoenix, as I've shown many times. No forest fire can be blamed for whatever happened in Oshkosh, Wisconsin on March 19th, 1886. At 3 p.m. on a cloudy day, midnight darkness settled down over a 5-minute period in the middle of the day, at daytime. It was startling enough to disturb horses and send people rushing through the streets. After 10 minutes, it was gone. According to the local newspaper, cities to the west say the same phenomenon was observed there in advance of its appearance here, showing that the wave of darkness passed from west to east. Nothing could be seen to indicate any air currents overhead. There was no solar eclipse on that day. There it is. As I've shown you in my books, there have been many instances of intense darknesses that have nothing to do with the moon blocking the sun's light. Hell, I even have an account of the entire city of New York going completely black during the daytime. Okay. November 1902. You know what? Let's start at the beginning. In the summer of 1902, brought drought and dust storms to Australia, with trade winds blowing the dust so thickly over the Malay archipelago that navigation was hindered. Okay, you're being gaslit. As I've shown in my published books and on many videos, the red dust that rained was on the entire world. Australia got a lot of it, like 50 tons per square mile in Australia. But in 1902, the whole world was bathed in red dust. So on November 12th, fireballs began to strike all over the continent. The dust in the air thickened until residents of Sydney were forced to carry lanterns through the streets. Exploding fireballs, meteoric, electrical, or something else, were reported from Parramatta and Carcoar. I'm sorry, Aussies, I can't pronounce these. On November 20th, Sir Charles Todd traced a fireball for 4 minutes over the Adelaide Observatory. Any meteor moving that slowly should scarcely have been heated enough to glow. The last explosion came over Ipswich, Queensland, on November 23rd. Yeah, there's no uniformitarian explanation for this. Nothing moving that slow would be burning from friction. So, why was it burning? See, an apparent dust storm or cloud on Mars was observed in late May 1903, both by W.E. Denning in England and Percival Lowell in Arizona. Interestingly, although Lowell's many straight Martian canals eventually proved to be an illusion, his observations of transient changes in the planet's colors are among the best of their time. I don't know. I got this picture here because I noticed Recently, I noticed a real large YouTube channel talking about Tunguska. Yeah, I guess they didn't have anything else to do a video about, but they did not at all mention the greatest mystery about Tunguska. Oh, you know what? It was Randall Carlson. Randall Carlson recently did he was talking about Tunguska, and I was just listening to it. I don't remember what I was doing. I was doing something with my hands, so I'm listening to YouTube. And I remember I stopped to listen to him, and I was like, wow, you're really pushing this meteorite BS, that a comet came in and detonated over Siberia. Listen, the Russians are the ones you need to pay attention to, not any of these modern people who don't know what the hell they're talking about. This detonation was heard all the way as far as England. This detonation was massive. It could have been a comet if comets are real. It could have been a meteorite if meteorites are real. I don't know. But what I do know is that the original Russian reports were boots on the ground, where they went out and they talked to all these people, even hundreds of miles away, that saw the object in the sky. And what is absolutely known from the original Russian reports is that when this bright shining object appeared in the sky, it changed its trajectory twice, as if it was trying to find a place to detonate, as if it was trying to find one of the most remote areas in the world that it could go ahead and detonate, and it found it. Tunguska was uninhabited. It found a forest way out in the middle of Siberia that was uninhabited, and it blew up. If it would have blown up anywhere near a Russian city, that Russian city would have been obliterated. But the object in 1908, in the original Russian report, it changed. Eyewitnesses said it changed directions twice. No bolide, no meteorite, no comet can do that. And I'm just telling you, man, these guys should know that. These guys should know that. Nothing changes. Nothing in the uniformitarian model of our solar system can change directions after it's entered the atmosphere and it's already reached terminal velocity. It's impossible. It's impossible. It was moving with intelligence. There's no doubt in my mind. The miracle of Fatima in the month of May. There's that merry, merry month of May. I keep mentioning it. In the month of May, 1917, a vision appeared to 3 shepherd children near the village of Fatima in Portugal. On a cloud that hovered above an oak tree, they saw the shining figure of a woman, a beautiful lady from heaven. The lady told the children, Lucia 10, Francisco 9, and Jacinta 7, to meet her in the same place on the 13th of each month until October. A month later, about 50 people gathered to see the apparition. Some of them claimed to see a cloud above the tree, but only the children saw the lady herself. A larger crowd assembled on the following month, but again, the lady was invisible to all but the children. By now, there was a considerable opposition to the story and the unwelcome publicity it was bringing to the district. And on August 13th, the children were arrested by the local prefect. 2 days of interrogation failed to make them change their testimony. That would be pretty scary to the kids to be arrested like that. On the 19th of the month, the lady again appeared to them, this time at Valenhos, not far from Fatima, and told them that they would see her again for the last time on October 13th. A crowd of 50,000 people gathered on a wet and dismal day to see the last apparition. Remember, up until this time, the people haven't seen anything. It's only been these 3 children. This time, the shining lady, again invisible to all but the children, announced her identity. She was Our Lady of the Rosary. Of course she was. And she told them 3 secrets about the future. Then something shocking happened. The rain suddenly stopped and the sun came out. At first, it seemed to start spinning, and then it began to plunge crazily toward the earth. The crowd was terrified. After a moment, the sun returned to its normal position and then twice more repeated the same maneuver. Later, people found that their clothing, which had been soaked in the downpour, was quite dry. The two younger children, Francisco and Jacinta, died during the influenza epidemic of 1918 to 1919. Lucia learned to read and write and recorded the secrets the lady had told her. The first was a vision of hell. The second may be a reference to World War II. The war, World War I, is coming to an end, but if people do not cease to offend the Lord, another and more terrible one will break out during the next pontificate. When you see the night lit up by a great unknown light, know that it is a sign that God gives you of the punishment of the world by another war, famine, and persecution of the church and of the Holy Father. To me, this is all religious nonsense. I don't care about none of this. I don't care about none of this. Here are the three. Two of them died when Marconi's new invention was now being widely used, and radiation was hurting people again in World War I. They've covered it up as the what do they call it? Influenza epidemic. What's interesting to me is that only in a simulated environment could this be real. Could 50,000 people be terrified that the sun had just plunged over the world? Only why? Why? I've got some really compelling videos of all the historical events that we have recorded. We've got woodcuts, paintings, illustrations, historical testimonies. I've got videos that are packed full showing that the sun is a local phenomenon, because the many times in history that it did something similar to this in 1917 means the entire world would have been affected. This event in 1917 couldn't have happened if the sun was 93 million miles away, because that means the earth would have been a globe and it would have shifted, and the sun can't plunge to the ground unless the world toppled really fast. And if the world toppled really fast, it's already moving 1,000 miles an hour, right? It's already moving 63,000 miles around the sun in space, right? That's two different motions, right? Well, if that's the case, we already know that in a pole shift, it's going to take hours, if not days, if not weeks, for the oceans to catch up with the surface of the world. Why? Because water doesn't move like the land does. It stays in a fixed position. So when it looks like the ocean tsunamis are swallowing your continent, a 2-mile high wall of water, it's not the water moving. It's your continent slipping under the basin. So none of that happened in 1917. The entire world didn't know what happened. Why? Because the sun is a local phenomenon. Our entire stellosphere is observer dependent. This can only be possible in a simulated context. That, my friends, is the first presentation of the 3 that I'm doing back to back. We got tomorrow's coming. It's going to be all different stuff. All the stuff we talked about today, totally different. Tomorrow's presentation is going to cover totally different anomalies. We're going to be talking about all different stuff. And then on the third day, we're going to cover totally different anomalies. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of other stuff. 3 days back to back. I'm doing this out of respect for the fact that we have Flat Earth Dave coming on the show on Monday. And I want my community ready. They have to know, you have to understand, our world is not what you think. Get that uniformitarian Newtonian physics model out of your head, because it completely defies the known facts in the historical record at all. I'm a simulationist, and I'm always going to show the historical record verifies simulation theory. That's the promise I made from the very inception of my channel. And I have continually asked you guys over and over and over, have I made my case? Because the only promise I ever made you guys from the beginning 5 years ago was that I was going to show you from the historical record that the chronology of our world and the events where they are put in the historical record are absolute proof that we live in a simulation. That is all I've ever promised. I also promised to tell you the truth in all things that I discourse about. But those were my promises from the very beginning. I'm not deviating from that. So that's tonight's video. You have another compelling video tomorrow. You have another one Sunday, and then we're gonna talk to Flat Earth Dave about this flat plane we live on and this BS sky that we live underneath. That's what we're talking about. We might shoot the shit on some other things too, guys. But that's my presentation, and I am hungry and I need me some coffee, and I will holler at you guys later. Hope you enjoyed this presentation. I hope you buy an Archaix t-shirt. Links are in the description box for the Shopify. We got all new merchandise. Keep Cheryl busy. Keep that girl busy. She was so excited when you guys started ordering t-shirts when I released that t-shirt commercial. Yeah, she hit me up. She was so excited about she had something to do. All right, guys. Love you guys, but it is time for me to go. Let me find me a good little outro because I didn't get one ready. I'm going to leave Jimmy alone for these 3 videos. Let me find a different outro. Find something else.